Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Marvel. Glory of the Sun God. Chapter 21. Hey, seeing Tony rolling his eyes, hands and feet twitching, looking like I'm about to die, Wang Hao quickly gathered another ball of life force and then directly pressed Tony into it. Okay, Tony, who was about to act and die on the spot a second ago, was pressed, and the whole person sat up straight, his eyes widened. Glancing at Wang Hao, Tony suddenly remembered the hole in his chest before he finished speaking, and quickly looked down. It didn't matter at first glance, the hole in the chest was stinging with blood, and the main artery spurted blood crazily. After a while, the hospital bed was dyed red. I'm dead. Tony closed his eyes and fell back, but Wang Hao grabbed him. Why do you want to die? You still want to die with me? As he said that, Wang Hao casually threw the reactor and heart aside, and then Invisible's power condensed and directly blocked the big hole in Tony's chest. The life force can indeed restore Tony's injuries, but the problem is, Tony's recovery rate is a bit too slow. The huge and incomparable life force made it impossible for him to die. Even if he was blown to pieces, he could still jump up and down as long as he was put together. Although the supply of life force greatly shortened the recovery time of the cells, he was an ordinary human after all, and the efficiency of the cells was limited. This is the same as you drink different fuels from the engine. The better the oil, the higher the combustion efficiency, and the performance of the engine will also improve, but this does not mean that it can exceed its limit. So Tony doesn't have the perverted resilience of Wolverine and Deadpool. He just doesn't die. Every cell of him will maintain a strong activity, but recovery still takes a certain amount of time. And during this time, the blood spurted out of his body alone would probably be able to completely dye the helicarrier red. After all, compared with the speed of heart regrowth, the speed of blood production is faster. And now, Wang Hao is rebuilding a heart for him. And this time, he didn't use pure life force, but the power of faith transformed by the light of hope combined with life force. Body reconstruction. The power of faith transformed by the light of hope has unimaginable power, and it can do everything in theory. However, absorbing the little power of faith given by Banner was obviously not enough to repair Tony's injury, so Wang Hao changed his method. He used the power of faith as the foundation, integrated Wang Hao's life force, and then turned this power into a program. As long as this force enters the injured person's body, it will stimulate the injured's body cells, allowing these cells to break through the limit in a short time, and use powerful energy as a backing to repair the damaged parts. In fact, Wang Hao himself could do it, because he already possessed the most critical life force, and what needs to be learned and explored is only about its application method. But the power of faith works well here, and it can do everything you want it to do. So, using the power of faith, Wang Hao easily mastered the method of healing with the power of life. Well, the cure for humans. Is this magic? Divine magic? Watching Tony's heart grow in the blink of an eye, Wang Hao stroked his smooth chin. He originally planned to go to Kamar Taj to learn a little magic and understand more ways to use his ability. After all, other gods have lived for thousands of years at every turn, and even tens of thousands of years and hundreds of thousands of years. As for the use of power, even a pig's brain can almost understand it after so many years, but he only became a god for 3.5 days, that's all. But now it seems that if you have the power of faith, what spells do you need to learn? At Wang Hao's fingertips, the rich power of life turned into a rune. From now on, if Wang Hao wants to heal a certain human being, he only needs to use this rune to mobilize his own power. Time-saving, efficient and convenient. Not only did I learn new skills, but I also got a master key. It is only now that Wang Hao knows the correct use of the power of faith and his own divine power, which is of great significance to him. Because from now on, he is more like a god than a super ability with all kinds of strange abilities. I hate you. On the bloody bed, Tony opened his eyes and let out a long sigh of relief, then looked at Wang Hao and said his first words after being reborn. There is no way. It is difficult for anyone to look normal when facing a person who digs out his heart and lungs. But this feeling is really good. I feel like I can play a friendly match with 10 chicks now. Tony jumped off the bed, although his body was covered with bright red blood. After all, his heart had been dug out, the blood was sprayed everywhere, but he was full of energy at the moment, not at all like a person who had just escaped from death. I injected a little too much vitality just now, so your state of unlimited energy will last for a long time. It is conservatively estimated that it will take about a month or two to return to normal, unless you are constantly seriously injured and dying. Definitely, you can't die, even if you become a piece of meat. As long as you mix them together, you can recover. Earlier, because he was worried that Tony would really burp, Wang Hao slapped a lot of vitality, which was really a lot, enough to restore youth to a 90-year-old man. I take back what I just said, I'm starting to like you a little bit now. The sun is a masculine symbol, so I'm only interested in women or goddesses. Also, aren't you going to change your clothes? Has anyone ever told you that your blood stinks? After the voice fell, Wang Hao disappeared directly into the room. And Tony also lowered his head and sniffed, and then immediately showed a disgusted look. Blood is naturally stinky, and hemoglobin is also protein, and as long as it is protein, it will emit a peculiar stench after oxidation, such as rotten eggs and spoiled meat, which is also the origin of the bloody smell. And Wang Hao didn't say it's okay. When he said that, everyone in the room turned disgusted, and ran out one by one, holding their noses. Hey, don't all go, I didn't bring any clothes to change, and where is your bathing place? Wang Hao, who had slipped away early, laughed when he heard the shouts behind him, and then he focused on his magic again. The power of faith combined with his special ability can do many things he has thought and never thought of. Such as weapons. Before, he condensed a lightsaber and named it Xuanyuan sword, and held it to fight Thor. But in fact the sword is just pure photopolymerization, a mass of energy, and it doesn't matter what shape it is. As for the sharpness and toughness that a divine sword should have, or other functions, those do not exist. But it is different now. As long as he has enough power of faith, he can create a powerful enough sword with light energy. With the power of faith as bone and his light power as flesh and blood, the power of this divine sword will not be inferior to Thor's Mjolnir. Moreover, just replenishing the power of light from time to time, then this sword can always exist, including giving it to other people to use and so on. I can still create life. If forging weapons isn't good enough, what about creating life? With Wang Hao's ability, it is not difficult to create a body, but the preciousness of life lies in the soul, and the soul is precisely the very few parts that Wang Hao has not touched. At least no one has said that the sun is the master of the soul, the nemesis of souls and ghosts, but no one has ever said that the master and creator of the soul. In most myths, the sun is the nemesis of ghosts and demons, and it is the existence that they must die when they touch it. It is common sense that neither Eastern ghosts nor Western ghosts can appear under the sun, but this also leads to Wang Hao being unable to create souls. But the power of faith can do this. Coupled with Wang Hao's power of life, Wang Hao has the ability to create life. The power of faith, the power of will, where can I get it? The places with the most vows are naturally temples and churches, but those belong to other people, to other gods. The only thing Wang Hao has obtained so far is the belief from Banner, which was influenced by his spiritual ability. Not to mention that this belief is not firm, it is also very unstable. If divided according to the level of dubious believers, weak believers, strong believers and fanatics, Banner only belongs to weak believers. Strong believers already believe in Wang Hao very firmly, and are willing to go to the risk of death for Wang Hao, such as fighting a jihad with heretics for him. But if it touches on principles, such as Wang Hao asking him to kill his lover, then he may have some hesitation, and there is a high probability that he will not do it in the end. As for fanatics, there is no hesitation at all to die for Wang Hao, and to kill one's lover for Wang Hao, and to do anything without hesitation. But fanatics are extremely difficult to obtain. After all, human beings have complicated minds, definitely, and it is precisely because of this that there is such a strong light of hope that they can obtain such power of faith. New York Wars. This is an opportunity. War has always been a place where despair spreads, and it has always been a place where hope is born. In today's era, the overall situation remains peaceful, and the upcoming New York War is undoubtedly the best opportunity. As the largest city in the world, New York City has a floating population plus a permanent population of 30 million. Although the damage caused by the Chitauri invasion is only limited to Manhattan, it is a highly populated area in New York, million. As for the millions of people, as long as Wang Hao performs well and saves them from the fire and water, it will be easy to gain some power of faith. But this may require Tony's cooperation. Wang Hao is no novice. Living in the information age, he naturally understands the importance of phishing media in the information age. So, after Tony took a shower and put on clean clothes, Wang Hao pulled him aside. What kind of means should be used to deal with what kind of people? The same goes for preaching. Banner has had a hard time the past few years, so promise to keep him from suffering forever. Is it hard to separate him from Hulk? Well, it might have been a bit difficult before, but now that Wang Hao has mastered the power of faith, it is very easy. And likewise, what does Tony need? Stay young forever. What did you say? The golden gun will not fall. What do you mean? Little Gogo doubles in size. No, just say it if you have something to say. Can I help you? Bring your parents back to life. Make a deal. Tony's eyes were fixed on Wang Hao. All doubts and principles were put aside. Even if Wang Hao asked him to help Loki win this war, he might have to think about it. The result of consideration is definitely still unwilling. Brother, can you really revive my parents? And what is it? You don't really want me to help Loki betray the Earth? In this regard, Wang Hao just smiled mysteriously. I want you to believe in me like they believe in God, believe that I can bring you light, believe that I can give you hope. Tony wanted to say that he definitely believed in Wang Hao, but he soon realized that the meaning was different. I believe in science. Tony sighed. As a scientist, as a materialist, as a believer in God, this is a very difficult thing. Because the two are things that run counter to each other, rather than a three-way road, which leads to the same goal. For Tony, everything in this world can be analyzed. Gods and divine power are just a way of life at a higher level, and they are just a kind of power that has not yet been discovered and used. Magic is science. This is Tony's motto. Just like when Dr. Stephen Strange met Ancient One, before Ancient One opened his spiritual world and let him see the multi-universe with a spiritual perspective, Strange didn't believe in magic at all. He understood all the practice theories described by Ancient One, and all the mental impact material things as new medical technologies, which have not yet been made public and have no new technologies for clinical trials. And Tony is even more extreme. Strange is just a doctor who is at the forefront of technology, but he is not a scientist who pursues the limits of science. For Tony to believe in God, it is tantamount to letting him give up everything he believed in and pursued in the first half of his life. Is it okay to change the request? This is really a bit difficult. I don't know how to convince myself. If believing in Wang Hao can save his parents, Tony is definitely willing, but his worldview has already been established, and it is so difficult to break it, which is tantamount to reshaping him as a person. It's not impossible, but resurrecting them can't be for no reason, and it can't be so easy. In the world of gods, the basic rule is equivalent exchange. Mortals pay piety, and I get what I want. So, what price are you willing to pay? Wang Hao was expressionless, staring directly at Tony. The Stark Group is worth more than 980 billion, plus my arc reactor, its value is only high but not low. Do you think I need money? Or do you think I will be short of money? I can even repair your heart. How rich do you think are willing to exchange their wealth for their lives? Touching his chest, feeling the strong beating, Tony gave a wry smile. Indeed, can more money buy life? As long as the news is conveyed, countless aging rich people are willing to pay sky-high prices to ask Wang Hao to continue his life. That price, even with the Stark Group, Tony still thinks it's an astronomical figure. Then what else do I have? You are looking for me for no reason. If it is for faith, I think the captain is definitely more suitable than me. Wang Hao secretly said in his heart, I think so too. The captain is indeed more suitable to be his disciple. There is even a chance to develop into a strong believer. A fanatic has no chance. He is a person with strong principles, but a strong believer is very likely. But that's something later. What Wang Hao is looking for now is not just one person, but many people. Well, you help me build a church, use your wealth, publicize through the media, 10 believers, I will give you the first reward, 100 believers will be the second, and so on, 10,000 believers, I will resurrect your parents for you. This is mainly because Wang Hao doesn't know how difficult it is to resurrect people, but it shouldn't be too difficult. Because Wang Hao remembers very clearly that there is no concept of reincarnation in the Marvel Universe. Except for a certain big shot who will reincarnate by himself, other lives will live forever in the decedent country after their souls die. That is, the world of the dead, one of the 5 creation gods. And in this case, the difficulty of resurrection will be much, much lower. After all, if there is reincarnation, these decades have passed, and the 2 of them must have been reincarnated as other people long ago. It is hard to say whether they are on the earth, or they may have turned into animals. Howard Stark started out as an arms dealer, and he has a lot of blood on his hands. Facing the solution proposed by Wong Hao, Tony nodded after thinking for a moment. It was indeed a solution that didn't embarrass him, but it did solve the problem. As for the establishment of churches to preach, anyway, believing in religion is not forced by others, it is what you are willing to believe in. Besides, Wong Hao is a sun god, representing justice and light, so what else is there to say? Just do it. Thinking about it this way, there was no need for Tony to stay here any longer. He had to go back and contact Pepper to acquire several well-known media, both traditional and online, and then there was the issue of establishing a church, which also had to find a special person. I'll ask them for a plane to go back to New York first. The armor was burned, and Tony had to go back by plane, and speaking of planes, as it happened, a plane just flew next to the helicarrier. Whoosh! An arrow accurately hit the hood after calculating various factors such as wind force, air humidity, and acceleration of gravity. Boom! After a violent explosion, there was a shake of the mothership. Wong Hao glanced outside through the clairvoyance, and immediately slapped his head. Why did you forget this one? After arresting the 2 Loki brothers and returning, Wong Hao has been busy studying his newly acquired power of faith, and he has not heard anything outside the window, so the scene where Hawkeye came to rescue Loki was forgotten by him. But it's not a problem. As long as the plan is still going on over there. The light flowed, and as the ability became more sophisticated, the range that Wong Hao could see also became farther away. And as far as he could see, New York, on the roof of the Stark building, Dr. Hillwig was erecting a wormhole generator. War is coming. As Wong Hao was busy exploring his new ability, Hawkeye's rescue operation was as sudden as shown in the movie. While everyone was busy with their own business, 2 engines were destroyed by Hawkeye one after another, losing power. If we lose one more engine we'll go down. The words of the technical agent were quickly conveyed to the Avengers by Nick Fury. My Mark 6 is completely damaged, and the equipment on the mothership cannot be repaired at all. Tony looked annoyed. Among the Avengers, he and Thor were the only ones with high-altitude combat ability, but according to Nick Fury, Thor was busy restraining the Berserk Hulk right now. He's been tricked after all. Hulk was summoned with little hindrance under the influence of the Mind Gem, and is now wreaking havoc. Wong Hao, let Mr. Wong Hao help. Nick Fury yelled as he fought the men Hawkeye had brought. Okay, I can help, but what do you want me to help? Help Thor subdue the Hulk, or solve the problem that this ship is about to fall. Nick Fury's voice was so loud that even though Wong Hao didn't have a headset, he could hear it through the thing in Tony's ear. I think you can help Thor subdue Hulk. As for the engine problem, let me and the captain go. Can't he use that hammer to fly? Tony quickly thought of a way to get the best of both worlds. Wong Hao had no objection to this, but he said something softly when he turned to leave. Equivalent exchange. Don't forget, I helped Nick Fury catch Loki, which is more than offset by him treating me to dinner, allowing me to visit Shield's homage, and saving this mothership, then he owes me one. What is an equivalent exchange? This is definitely just Wong Hao's casual statement, and this is only done out of his own will, but it is indeed necessary. Wong Hao's ability is too strong for them. If there is no such restriction, then they will come to Wong Hao when they encounter something, then what will he become? Doraemon. Wong Hao's reminder made Tony's face more serious, and he remembered that although getting along with Wong Hao made him look like a friend, in fact, they did not exist on the same level. I will tell him, and I believe he will make a clear judgment. After the voice fell, Wong Hao's figure had disappeared into the corridor, and after Tony took a deep breath, he quickly contacted the captain and walked towards the engine room. Boom! The hard concrete and steel plate ground was stepped out of a huge amount of deep pit, a big green foot slammed, and then the body rushed forward like a cannonball. Roar! Bo Da's fist set off a violent blow, and a second later, a figure in armor flew out backwards, smashing a carrier-based aircraft into 2 pieces. Hun Dan, I'm your teammate. Among the steel wreckage, Thor with disheveled hair got up and glared at Hulk, who was even more violent than him. Then he jumped up with a roar, and his heavy fists fell like raindrops, hitting Hulk's body. Although he lost his little hammer, Thor is a god after all. His divine body and thousands of years of fighting experience make him not inferior to Hulk in mere hand-to-hand combat. Hulk, the fan-like palms pinched from both sides. Thor, who was very strong in the eyes of ordinary people, looked like a child compared to Hulk. He quickly raised his arms to resist the attack of the green-skinned monster. What? As Thor of Asgard, Thor's combat power is proven by time, accumulated from battle victories over thousands of years. But the point is, there is never a shortage of people in this world who knock your self-confidence down. Hulk, a green monster born under a huge amount of gamma radiation, even suppressed Thor in terms of physical strength. The angrier and stronger he was, his strength swelled to the peak under the guidance of Mind Gem. Even though Thor was extraordinary, he could only be beaten passively without the hammer. It's over, another floor. The shivering S.H.I.E.L.D. agent hiding in the corner watched Thor being hugged by Hulk, first punched him twice with the explosive hammer, and then punched through to the next floor with a slap. His heart was suddenly gloomy. If the fight continues, these two men will finish dismantling the helicarrier. However, Hulk's anger has not yet been vented. I really want a god to save us. An agent clasped his hands together, closed his eyes and prayed. Idiot, the one who got hammered was Thor. The companion next to him tapped his head. Then, what about the sun god? That sun god seems to be stronger than Thor, right? Yes, where is our sun god? As soon as the words fell, a ray of light suddenly appeared in this messy place. Wong Hao, who rushed over like a stroll in the yard, was smiling, and the soft sunlight radiated from his body, reassuring every fearful and desperate agent and igniting hope. Those who believe in me will not suffer. Those who believe in me will not enter reincarnation. Those who believe in me will have eternal life. I am light, I am hope, and I am the god of the sun. Chunchan's words penetrated into everyone's heart along with the warm light. Hulk looked back, and in the light, a god was walking towards him. Hulk, the chaotic and violent eyes became gentle after touching Wong Hao's holy light, just like a frightened little animal saw its mother. Its heavy breathing became calm, and its bulging muscles began to relax. Hulk murmured in a low voice, his eyes were downcast, his body became smaller and smaller, and finally, a middle-aged man in tattered clothes fell to the ground. I'm sorry. Looking at his hands, he looked at the almost destroyed engine room around him, and the agents hiding behind the boxes and walls. Banner's face was full of shame, and his eyes were full of pain and regret. I shouldn't have come. Appearing in such a crowded place, no matter how careful he is, he still inevitably turns into a disaster. This is too terrible. How many innocent lives will he cause? How many people have suffered grief? Get up. Hope is still there, isn't it? This is not your fault, it is caused by Loki using the psychic scepter to invade your mind. Lifting Banner up from the ground, watching the middle-aged man burst into tears, Wong Hao could clearly sense the pain in his heart from the thread of his belief. So, he was angry. I bring the dawn and ignite hope for all living beings, but I am also the dusk, marking the end of the world. There is a debtor who has a debtor, and he uses you to hurt others, so use his blood to pay for it. As his number one believer, one of his own, Banner was wronged, so Wong Hao could just sit back and ignore it. This war, which was nothing more than a happy game to him, has brought personal emotions from now on. Squeak. There was a sound of sour metal cracking, and before everyone could react, suddenly, the entire helicarrier began to fall freely. In an instant, everyone on the mothership except Wong Hao floated up immediately. They all entered a state of weightlessness and fell together with the mothership. Tony, what are they doing? Seeing the people in the cabin rolling around in a mess, Wong Hao searched and looked outside the mothership. It turned out that no one was repairing the engine that was damaged earlier, and the captain was flying outside with a hammer, but he obviously couldn't provide much help because he knew nothing about motor technology. And Tony, he's swinging in the wind clinging to some doorknob. Oh, I still have to come. Feeling helpless, Wong Hao didn't hesitate, smashing a certain cabin wall and appearing outside. So, what's the situation now? Although it is at an altitude of 10,000 meters, the mothership will have to land for a while based on the acceleration of gravity, but this time will not be too long. Wong Hao hovered beside Tony, asking about the master of electrical engineering. I don't know, those two engines suddenly failed. I don't have armor, so I can't fix the broken one. The old man doesn't understand at all. His understanding of electronic equipment is still limited to repairing tape recorders. Can I what to do? Holding on to the doorknob to keep himself from being blown away by the wind, Tony yelled. In this regard, Wang Hao sighed helplessly, and then continued to ask. What if I go under this thing and lift it up? Is there anything you can do to fix it? Although I don't know how strong I am, I think the mass of a sun must be heavier than this helicarrier. Tony's eyes lit up when he heard that, but then he shook his head again. No, you are the only support point, and you will directly penetrate it. I have my own way, it's enough for you to do your own thing well. After finishing speaking, Wang Hao ignored him and flew to the bottom of the mothership with his hand on the bottom of the ship. Superman lifts the plane. It's not too much for me to lift an aircraft carrier, right? Let me do it. The golden light spread rapidly, covering the bottom of the entire mothership, and then, Wang Hao supported his own light curtain with both hands, allowing it to disperse its power to every part of the bottom of the mothership, and a terrifying force erupted. What? The golden light shines brightly. Wang Hao's eyes are like two suns, dazzling and dazzling, and following it is the huge power that shakes the world. The fully loaded helicarrier with a displacement of hundreds of thousands of tons fell from a height of 10,000 meters under the action of gravity acceleration, and its kinetic energy was no less than that of a nuclear bomb with a conventional equivalent. After all, this thing flies into the sky by nuclear power, not aviation fuel. And this force is now all on Wang Hao alone, and it is still concentrated on a person with such a file size, its power can directly penetrate the entire Earth. However, what is shocking is that the mothership was still falling, but the speed of the fall became slower and slower. In the end, at an altitude of less than 5 kilometers from the ground, the mothership stopped out of thin air. Omega. Military satellites across the United States all set their sights on this place when they received the rescue signal from S.H.I.E.L.D. Naturally, they also saw the aircraft carrier lose its power and fell, and witnessed it with their own eyes, a miracle. Mazefak, what is this? Mom, come out and see God. Jonathan, what was the church you mentioned last time? I think it's better for me to believe. As the camera zoomed in, the figure exuding unparalleled holy light gradually appeared in people's eyes. Under the golden barrier was a pair of hands, supporting the most powerful weapon in the world. Miracle. No, this is a miracle. Call. The whistling sound of the wind whizzed past his ears. Standing on the restored bridge, looking at the man on the screen who raised his hands to support everything, even Nick Fury couldn't help feeling excited. Not to mention those ordinary agents, they hugged each other, lamented that they escaped from death this time, and celebrated that they had passed another difficult day. At an altitude of 10,000 meters, the engine lost power and fell freely. At this time, no one could save them. Even if it is the world's #1 U.S. military, in the face of this situation, they will most likely choose to launch a missile. Because this mothership is really about to fall, it's okay to say that if it falls into the sea, if it falls on land, it will be destroyed by the terrible shockwave within a radius of dozens of kilometers. But they survived only because a God saved them. Praise be to you, my son God. An agent clasped his hands together. At this moment, they felt the hope in this man. At the same time, strands of hope echoed with Wang Hao, and strands of faith merged into Wang Hao's divine body, becoming his strength, a part of. Not bad. While continuing to push the mothership back to orbit, Wang Hao felt the extra believers he had. These believers are much more than Banner, and the last ones are all weak believers, and there are 2 strong believers among them. And this allowed Wang Hao to replenish the power of faith that had already been exhausted. If he used his spiritual ability to influence Banner and make him a weak believer, then the power of faith from him is 1, then he now has nearly 40 points of power of faith. Among them, the 2 strong believers contributed 10 points each, and as long as their beliefs did not waver, then this number would accumulate over time and increase every day. This is why Wang Hao thinks this wave is not a loss. A little power of faith can develop healing skills, so with 40 points, there are not too many things that can be done. However, Wang Hao was not in a hurry to use it. He vaguely had an idea, and once that idea was completed, it would be of great help to him, so this power of faith had to continue to accumulate. holding the helicarrier flight for a while, during which time the captain came. Since Wang Hao did not wear their communicator, he could only convey the message in this way. Stark said that the engine is difficult to repair without the armor, so he is now trying to restore the mothership's system and restore the 2 engines that were shut down by the virus. It will take about 10 minutes. Sure enough, after more than 10 minutes, Wang Hao only felt a light hand, and the whirring sound of the engine came again, and the helicarrier resumed its operation. Wang Hao withdrew the light energy barrier, and then flew back to the bridge. Seeing his arrival, everyone stood up one after another. The eyes of ordinary agents were full of gratitude and admiration, while the Avengers were also excited. Thanks. Nick Fury stepped out of the array and said in a deep voice on behalf of everyone. I am the Sun God, loving the world as part of me. A warm smile appeared on Wang Hao's face, but then, it was as scorching as the scorching sun at noon in July. However, I also represent judgment, and my anger will burn Loki like the midday sun, making him responsible for everything he has done. This is the first time Wang Hao has declared war on Loki. Before that, he was a guest star. After hearing this, Nick Fury was obviously relieved. Wang Hao's participation in the battle is undoubtedly the greatest blessing. But we've lost communication now, we can't even find out where he went. Is his portal open? Hill opened his mouth and said, just because your method doesn't work, doesn't mean mine doesn't work. Wang Hao took 2 steps forward, then looked out the porthole. In an instant, all the light in the entire Western Hemisphere was sensed by Wang Hao, and the light from the sun illuminated this half of the earth, which people called daytime. And now, by the decree of the Sun God, all the lights are sending their messages to their masters. New York, let's go. Needless to say, after experiencing this failure, the Avengers were all suffocated. They must find Loki and use pain to make him understand what revenge is. Can you take me back first? I need to get some equipment. In the corridor, everyone was arranging their clothes, a Quinjet was already ready on the deck, and Tony suddenly came to Wang Hao and said, okay. Knowing that Tony was going back to change his armor, Wang Hao did not refuse. You can also contact various media, not only for my affairs, but also for your poor and pathetic government. Those in power in a country don't even care about the survival of the country. In this capital country, the plutocrats hold power, and the Congress and the White House are just their obedient loyal dogs. And when did capital have the concept of country and nation? Even if the country's collapse is imminent, they definitely don't care, and they can survive in another place, and there is a high probability that they will make a fortune in times of crisis, which will aggravate the process of its collapse. That's why they launch nuclear bombs without any hesitation when everyone is working hard and desperately. Because that maximizes the benefits, it not only solves the alien invasion of the current enemy, but also solves the enemy that may threaten them in the future, superhero. But Wang Hao definitely wouldn't tolerate being wronged in the slightest. Once those people dared to provoke him, the only way to pay homage was with blood. But at the same time, he also reminded Tony to prepare in advance and take the lead on the fishing boat. Carrying Tony, the golden light swept across the sky, and Wang Hao quickly flew towards New York. Behind him is the captain who was carried away by the hammer after transformation, followed by Natasha Romanoff, Banner, Thor and others who could not fly without the hammer. In the gloomy cosmic starry sky, a group of Chitauri troops were ready to go. Then, the space in front of them fluctuated, and the blue portal slowly opened. With an order, the army came out together, and through the hole that looked like some kind of eye, the devil descended. Acknowledge the time, 3, 2, 1, go. A group of people formed a circle, and then pressed the instruments in their hands together. The machine started, the quantum tunnel opened, everyone shrank constantly, and soon disappeared into the original world. 2 seconds later, the tunnel opened again, and figures came out one by one. How are you all? Before finishing speaking, the speaker's eyes widened. Fact, where are Captain, Tony, Banner, and Scott? Things have changed. At the scene of the New York battle, Wang Hao carried Tony through the sky and landed on the top of the Stark building. Looking around, he didn't see Loki's figure. The guy who was supposed to pretend to be pretending here, and then was blasted by Tony, Thor and Hulk in turn left early, and he didn't know where he hid. Did you know I would come? The light shifted, and everything in the Manhattan Theater was seen by Wang Hao, but he didn't see Loki's figure. Hide, let me see how long you can hide. Wang Hao, who was about to use the power of faith to perform a person-finding spell, suddenly paused, looking at the supreme holy place not far away. Here's up to you. Loki is hiding. I'll see if I can find him. Although there are Chidori all over his head, Wang Hao didn't waste time to deal with them. Loki is the key. The scepter is in his hands. If he doesn't find the scepter, Wang Hao can only drill that hole to deal with the Chidori army. But even if the army is eliminated, the hole will still not be closed. Whether the power of the Tesseract can be broken by himself is not clear to Wang Hao, but there are shortcuts to take. Why do you want to take a fool? Tony, who ran into the house and started the Mark 7, responded, and then saw Wang Hao disappear in place. Hey, you're gone, what shall we do? While wearing a wristband, Tony, who asked Jarvis to start quickly, ran outside the house, but there was no one to be seen, but he had already seen Hilwig over there, but after some communication, it was obvious that the key point was Loki and the psychic scepter who was taken away by him. Everyone, that's the way it is. Our sun god is looking for Loki. Only when he finds this guy can the portal be closed. Our task is to rescue those civilians as much as possible and intercept these enemy troops. Putting on the brand new Mark 7, Tony had the confidence to speak, but before he could get any more arrogant, Jarvis sounded the siren. The enemy army has attacked massively. The Battle of the Avengers has nothing to do with Wang Hao. It is not time for him to come out to save the world, and the key is Loki. Only if he is caught, this farce will end. Hiding, this is not in line with your style. As an arrogant, self-abased evil god, it is Loki's style to swagger through the market and show off the limelight, but Wang Hao never thought that the pressure he put on him would be so great that when the Chidori army attacked, he hid up. But it doesn't matter, if there is that person, it shouldn't be difficult to find someone. The body lightly landed on the roof, but this time there was no need for Wang Hao to knock on the door. Ancient One was already waiting on the roof. Sun God. The Ancient One magician bowed slightly, waved a round of magical slash, and sliced a passing Chidori with a flight weapon in half. Do you know why I'm here? Wang Hao walked up to Ancient One. A ray of light shot up into the sky, like a sharp sword piercing through a Chidori miscellaneous soldier who didn't have long eyes. This is not very clear. Ancient One didn't lie. In the future she saw, although everything changed because of Wang Hao's arrival, but Wang Hao was not busy dealing with Chidori. She really didn't know what he came to her for. Loki is gone, and he took the psychic scepter. What? Ancient One's complexion changed slightly, and then he lowered his head in thought for a moment. I didn't see this future. As soon as the words fell, a green figure leapt up among the tall buildings, and after a few vertical leaps, it landed on the roof of Holy Place, beside Wang Hao and Ancient One. Hello. Huge amounts of Hulk smiled awkwardly rather than politely. He was about to knock on the door, but he didn't expect someone to be on the roof. Banner. No, Hulk, your gaze. The guy in front of him is naturally Hulk, but the problem is, his look is something that only Banner can have. In less than half an hour, Wang Hao really didn't understand why his number one believer suddenly changed so drastically. What is this power in you? Not only that, Wang Hao also saw a strange power in Banner, ethereal, lingering, like a long time. Who are you? Sorry, but I'm here for Strange. Hearing a name that shouldn't have appeared at this time, Wang Hao's eyes moved slightly, and he suddenly thought of a certain possibility. He turned to look at Ancient One, who looked at Hulk and nodded. Yes, it is the power of time and space. He comes from another time and space. As the master of time and space, the sun is the location of space. It determines the east, west, north and south. It is the separation of time, and determines the sun, moon and year. Therefore, Wang Hao is naturally sensitive to the power of time and space, just like a fish is naturally sensitive to water. At this moment, with the confirmation of Ancient One, Wang Hao also wanted to understand the origin of this abnormal Hulk. Hey, can I trouble you to tell Strange where the magician is? I'm in a hurry to find him. Strange is still undergoing surgery a few blocks away from here. You came at least 5 years earlier. But Banner, I'm curious, are you sure that I didn't exist in your time and space? The parallel universe is not scary. What is scary is that there are countless travelers themselves in the parallel universe. But the good news is that according to Banner's performance of not knowing himself, Wang Hao should not exist in their time and space. Moreover, if he was there, how could the Earth be forced to travel through time and space to other parallel worlds to collect infinite gems? I really don't know you, sir, but since Strange isn't here, can you please give that to me? I need it to save our world. Banner's thick fingers pointed to the time gem hanging on Ancient One's chest. I'm also sorry, Mr. Banner, it is also related to the safety of our universe, please forgive me for not giving it to others. Ancient One smiled and shook his head, rejecting Banner's proposal. Sorry, time was running out, and Banner didn't have time to spend time with Ancient One. Since he was rejected, he had no choice but to grab it. Caught out with a big hand, Hulk's strong physique is still full of intimidation after being mastered by Banner's consciousness, but, just like in the movie, he underestimated the people here. Hey, Bruce, just say what you have to say and don't move your hands. Compared with Banner, the very slender palm was in front of Banner. No matter how hard Banner tried and how he agitated his muscles, nothing changed at all. Wong Hao just stood there, like a mountain, not moving even an inch. Okay, let's get down to business first. Ancient One came out from behind Wong Hao, pushed his palm forward, and a much thinner figure emerged from Hulk's figure, and then watched his body fall down with a dazed expression. Sun God, let's find a way to find Loki first. Ignoring the cries of Banner's soul, Ancient One and Wong Hao walked down the stairs, and soon came to the supreme holy place. Loki is the magician with the most ability in Asgard. His ability is not bad, but the supreme holy place has a long history. With these magic tools and the Book of Visandi, it is not difficult to find him. Standing in the study, Ancient One picked up a magic weapon and several other magic materials before walking to the table. With both hands open, Ancient One sketched weird and strange runes on the special paper on the table, and then put various materials into it. With the use of magic tools, a mysterious wave spread around. Found it. The effect of the magic was immediate, or Loki didn't expect such a powerful secret magician to exist on Earth, so he didn't think about hiding it at all. I'll come back as soon as I go. Well, you can talk to that guy, but the result will wait until I come back. On the top of the building, Hulk in a soul state slapped the small wooden door in vain, but he couldn't pass through the seemingly weak door that actually contained a powerful magic seal. I will, Ancient One replied with a smile. It's no wonder that she is smiling. Since the appearance of Wong Hao, the future of the time and space they live in has been completely rewritten, and the final crisis has also dissipated and invisible in a twilight. In other words, the big demon that had been pressing on her heart for hundreds of years has disappeared, and this is not happy, so what is there to be happy about? By the way, haven't you found out yet? Just as Wong Hao turned around and was about to leave to arrest Loki, Ancient One stopped him again. Your divine charm, the sun is a symbol of masculinity. You have been exuding a fatal temptation for women, in fact, you can hide this. When she said this, a slight blush appeared on Ancient One's face. Obviously, even she who had been pure and ascetic for hundreds of years was affected. Otherwise, she wouldn't have specifically reminded Wong Hao of this matter. How to do it? Wong Hao scratched his head. He knew it was happening, but he really didn't expect that this thing could be hidden. And after hearing what Ancient One said, he also remembered that this seemed to be a trouble indeed. It's fine for beautiful women to have a good impression of him, but this thing can't distinguish between beauty and ugliness. As long as they are women, they will be attracted to him. It's just a matter of determination. If he appeared in front of the public in the future, wouldn't it cause large-scale social unrest? Countless women refused to marry unless he was married, and all kinds of married women abandoned their husbands and sons, so he directly became the public enemy of men. His great image of the sun god may collapse before it is established. Seeing Wong Hao's embarrassing smile, Ancient One had such an expression as expected, and then whispered something. These things are not difficult, and they belong to every Shendu society. Otherwise, with the perfection of the gods and the specialness of the gods, each god walking among the crowd as the absolute focus. You can choose to hide a certain aura, or even completely become an ordinary person in the eyes of others, but this method is only useful for ordinary people. Watching Wong Hao quickly grasp the trick, and then restrain his masculine charm, Ancient One also heaved a sigh of relief. I have been a nun for hundreds of years, but I almost failed today. After leaving the supreme holy place, Wong Hao quickly found the place according to the direction given by Ancient One. It's not a secluded place, nor is it a bar in a dark alley or an underground place that only special members can enter. In fact, this is in the center of the battlefield, inside a building not far from the wormhole. As Manhattan is the center of the New York economy, various multinational groups and well-known financial institutions are naturally indispensable here, and at this moment, Loki is hiding in one of the buildings. In other words, he didn't hide, he just restrained his aura, put on a suit, removed those gorgeous decorations, and concealed everything on his body, no different from ordinary people. Is this wine good? Standing in the office on the top floor of the building, through the transparent floor-to-ceiling windows, Loki can overlook the entire Manhattan area, including the Stark building not far away. At this moment, he was holding a glass of blood-red wine, watching the purgatory while savoring the sweet taste like blood. However, the sudden appearance of the voice made his complexion change, and then, a little light gathered, and a figure appeared in front of him, staring at him through the window. Boom! The glass of the floor-to-ceiling windows turned into powder and drifted with the wind, and the high-level wind blew Loki's shiny hair, setting off the horror in his eyes. No, you can't, only I know where the scepter is. Loki stepped back with trembling hands, fear never heard in his voice. He had never been humiliated like that, and he had never suffered like that. Wong Hao doesn't care who he is, and Wong Hao doesn't care what power he has. In front of him, Loki is vulnerable like a child, hysterical, but useless. It's pretty smart to think of hiding the scepter, but how do you think I found you? Standing by the window, Wong Hao stared at Loki, who couldn't stop backing away, and suddenly stretched out his right hand, grabbing into the void. Then a figure slowly appeared from the air, and another Loki was holding a scepter, trying to stab the scepter into Wong Hao's body. He also wants to use the power of the psychic scepter to control Wong Hao. But he neglected that false light and shadow might be useful to others, but to Wong Hao, all of Loki's actions are so clear. Loki in the room dissipated into invisible. By the window, Wong Hao grabbed the scepter with one hand and pinched Loki's neck with the other, announcing the end of the game. The invisible light turned into a cage, imprisoning Loki at the top of the Stark building. Wong Hao searched, and soon found Tony somewhere. Afterwards, several letters made of light appeared in front of Tony, telling him that the scepter had passed away. Retrieve. After a while, Tony flew back to the roof of his house, took the scepter handed by Wong Hao, and came to the wormhole generator. Give me a few minutes. Wong Hao nodded, looking at the sky again. Then let me clean up these bugs, so that you can have more materials for your subsequent promotion. Tony shook his body, and looked at Wong Hao with complicated eyes, but in the end it all turned into hope. If believing in you can bring us a better future, then I think I am willing to do so. Moreover, what I believe in is hope, and your hope. In Wong Hao's field of vision, a ray of strong faith slowly merged into Wong Hao's divine body. After experiencing a real war, seeing blood and fire, seeing death and destruction, and seeing his own powerlessness, Tony has already discovered that what he insists on is so insignificant in front of life. The simplest example is that he used to believe in freedom and believed in freedom, but if someone told him to give up part of his freedom, but those people can live and they don't have to suffer this kind of suffering, he would probably give up that part without hesitation free. Therefore, in a world without Wong Hao, Tony would not hesitate to monitor everyone and put everyone in iron cans for protection, even if it would violate their privacy and their freedom. But at least they won't lose their lives. But now, he has a better choice: believe in Wong Hao, believe in hope, believe in the God of the Sun. Crazy. In the war-torn Manhattan district of New York, a breathtaking bird song suddenly appeared and resounded through the sky. At that moment, everyone looked at the center of the city, below the wormhole. The sun has risen. For the residents of New York, this is a scene they will never forget in their lifetime. The giant golden bird soared into the sky and turned into a golden sun with flames flying, and those Chidori who had caused great damage to them fell like raindrops. The sun is rising higher and higher, and the light is getting brighter and brighter. This light is not dazzling, but very soft and comfortable. When the sun appeared below the wormhole, and when the golden crow flapped its wings, a fierce flame turned into a sharp sword, passed through the wormhole, and pierced into the depths of the universe. Intruders should be punished with death. The blazing sun rose, and in the scouting system of the Chidori fleet, they found themselves as if they had come to the surface of a fixed star. In an instant, a large number of miscellaneous pioneers waiting to go through the wormhole to conquer the Earth were directly reduced to ashes. No, there is no ashes. Perhaps the word evaporation is more appropriate. Flesh and blood have no chance of surviving at a high temperature of 5,000 to 6,000 degrees Celsius. Even though the Zeta Swiss soldiers used a large number of human and mechanical methods to combat ability, it is still difficult to survive in this extreme environment. What's more, temperature is only part of it. After those vanguard miscellaneous soldiers, groups of fleets and fighter planes were annihilated. The Yangan sword carried an unparalleled shockwave into the depths of space, and what was staged here was a solar storm. Even the weakest solar storm that can be observed by human observation equipment on the surface of the Sun contains the energy equivalent to the explosion of tens of billions of giant hydrogen bombs, and its power is enough to destroy the Earth countless times. Definitely, Wang Hao restrained the power of this sword. Although it was separated by a wormhole, it was too powerful and still threatened to affect the Earth. But even so, an extremely tiny solar storm erupted in such a small space, in such a dense fleet group, the consequences would be devastating. Before the Chidori's fleet even had a chance to send a message, it was reduced to cosmic dust in the endless light. Better than the vaporized flesh, the wreckage of their warship survived. But for life, it is obviously impossible to have survivors. The golden rain was still falling, and everyone looked up to the sky, staring at the unglamorous sun, just because the rain saved them. Countless Zeta Swiss soldiers were wiped out by the fire rain, and countless lives were saved and survived. Today is God's day, and in the sky, while spreading his own brilliance, Wang Hao also felt the joy, anger, sorrow and joy of countless people at this moment. A string of vows born from the light of hope is implicated with him, although there is no publicity yet and there is no church organization. But at this most desperate moment, Wang Hao saved their lives and the lives of their relatives and friends with this gesture, and they were not stingy with their beliefs. And Wang Hao also forgot one thing: this is the country of Mei, not the country on the other side of the ocean, or perhaps only the people of that country in the world are so special. In other parts of the world, atheism is actually a minority, especially in the so-called developed regions of Europe and America. These areas are economically developed, have a good life, and the average level of education of the people is higher, but unfortunately, the ratio of their belief in gods and religions is even greater. Therefore, when Wang Hao appeared in front of people, a large number of vows poured into his divine body, condensing into a pure and incomparable light of hope in the kingdom of God. I can't help but look forward to the scene after Tony's promotion. The vision of light opened, and Wang Hao watched the corners of the city, where countless people knelt and prayed. They don't know the name of the God above their heads, and they don't know where the God above their heads comes from, but they know that it is the sun. As early as a few days ago, the vision on a global scale had already shown the appearance of this God. Advent. So they recited the name of the sun together, and recited the light. Well, if I can feel their emotions, can that also reverse the process and make them hear me? Seeing countless people praying on their knees and expressing their respect and worship to Wang Hao in various ways, Wang Hao suddenly wanted to communicate with them. At least, you have to give yourself a name for this God. Decide on a God name. How, by the way, Haoshan. In the myth of planting flowers, Haoshan is the name of the God who rules everything. In Taoist mythology, he has always been the supreme ruler. It can be traced back to the Zhou dynasty at the earliest. The emperor actually appeared very late, and the so-called God also came from this. The guy Jehovah originally translated this name, but the language communication was not smooth at that time, so the translator himself wrote it according to the national conditions. Haoshan is not a person's name, but a title, a person, which is equivalent to Odin calling the Father of God and the King of God earlier. However, it is acceptable as a name of a god. Its original meaning includes the concept of dominating everything and governing everything. And this point, Wang Hao does meet. As the supreme sun god, his personality is the most noble among many gods, and his authority includes almost everything. In addition, his personality of the universe god is naturally superior to other gods. It couldn't be more appropriate. Ever since, in the city of New York, where the war ceased, countless people kneeling and praying suddenly heard a voice. A man was dressed in rags, his face was covered with dust, and his forehead was still stained with blood. He knelt on the ground, extremely pious, and thanked the god above his head for saving his life. Just beside him, a Chitorikong cavalry fell to the side, pierced by a shower of golden fire just before its muzzle was aimed at him. The upper body was charred, and the lower body, together with the air motorboat under his feet, was melted into 2 pieces. In just 1 second, he died unexpectedly, never to see his relatives and friends again. The newly born daughter can't even call her father, and the newly married wife will bear the huge pressure of raising her daughter alone with grief. Even for himself, he is only 30 years old, he is in his prime, he has not had time to look at this world carefully, and his dream of traveling around the world after retirement has not yet started. However, he was saved, his family did not lose him, he could hear his daughter calling him daddy for the first time with his own ears, and he and his wife could enjoy the scenery of the world when they were old. His life is still going on. So he is extremely grateful for this son, and thankful for this God. He believed in Holy Jesus in the past, and he is willing to worship the Sun God in the years to come. God. He suddenly raised his head and looked around, but besides him, the closest thing to him was a Chitori corpse. Then he was surprised to find that a ray of light overflowed from his body, accompanied by the scars on his body, and the pain was quickly disappearing. His God answered him. A warm, sunny, majestic, decisive, brave, and resolute male voice sounded in the hearts of his believers at this moment. And healed their bodies and minds with warm light. He sensed their hope and gave it back to them. Haoshin, thank you my God, thank you my God. Among the ruins, a man whose right leg was completely severed by Chitori's laser gun watched his broken leg grow out little by little. This living miracle made him burst into tears, and his excitement was beyond words. Among the crowd, a child hugging the mutilated body of his mother was pleasantly surprised to find that his mother suddenly moved, and she, who was still alive, was also healed under the holy light, and her body was constantly recovering. And this is only because of the purest and most selfless plea of this innocent child. Miracles are being performed, at the moment, in the entire city of New York. All believers who offer their faith and loyalty to Wang Hao have more or less felt the gift from him. Wang Hao, who gained a lot of wish power, once again spent a little bit to create 2 new magic spells. Punish sorcery. Use light energy to dispel evil spirits and various harmful components in the human body, including but not limited to various viruses and bacteria, various physical and chemical harmful components, and even various hyperplastic tissues, tumor cells and so on. Sunlight can exorcise evil spirits and kill ghosts on a mysterious level, and can sterilize bacteria on a scientific level, not to mention that various spectral radiations in sunlight have different effects. This magical technique can get rid of most of the diseases of people, and even the deposits in the lungs of smokers can be cleaned up. Combined with the healing technique, the combination of the 2 basically means that terminal cancer and limbs can be fully recovered in an instant. Blood full state. And for Wang Hao, these are not complicated and difficult, and he will not say how hard it is to heal a person. With the power of will, Wang Hao only needs to make a template and use his power of will to complete an instruction for his energy work, just like programming, which is actually simpler than programming. And the energy he provides will drive the program to run, and then achieve the above effects. So he only did 2 things, conceived instructions, and then expended the power of faith and output energy. And is there a lot of energy to heal these believers? Even if all the life on the entire Earth is added up, the sum of their energy may not be comparable to a real solar storm. Compared with the giant Earth, the leader of the solar system, the orange fixed star, is even less than 1 part in 3 million. Not to mention that what Wang Hao can invoke is the sun of the entire universe, the energy of the fixed star of the entire universe. Punishing evil together with healing can save a dying person, no matter whether he is seriously ill or dying from injury. But this is not enough. In addition to these benefactors, Wang Hao also needs another group of people, angels. Tony will help form the church, but the organization he formed with money and power certainly has good mobility, but money and power are the most reliable things, but they are also the least reliable things. Because once greater interests and greater power appear, its stability will be affected. So Wang Hao needs a group of people, a group of resolute people, a group of his fanatics, holding his power, walking in the world, blessing the world for him, and punishing disrespect for him. Psychics. This divine technique is divided into 2 parts, and only a few believers can master it. The first part is a threshold, which will automatically detect their degree of belief and the degree of conformity with their ideas and teachings. And when someone meets both conditions, then he will get this divine spell, which can be called Wang Hao's divine envoy. After becoming an envoy, first of all, the envoys will be favored by the light. In fact, they will be nourished by Wang Hao's life force, and their bodies will gradually become stronger, their bodies will gradually become more perfect, and their temperament will gradually become more pure. After becoming envoys for about a month, the image of each of them is almost like the captain. Since you want to preach, then naturally you have to have a great image, handsome and heroic, and strong strength are all necessary factors. Imagine a rat-looking guy running up to you and saying, "Religious dude. The sun god of light and justice." Who would accept such a scene? Religious, still light and justice. Therefore, the image problem is the key issue. Wang Hao definitely does not allow ugly people to exist in his team. If there is, then make him handsome. Making believers perfect is originally part of the miracle. Definitely, after becoming an envoy of God, it is not just a simple change in the body. The angel will have access to some of Wang Hao's powers. This point Wang Hao has not yet perfected, and it has something to do with something he has been planning. For now, they can communicate with Wang Hao to use healing and evil spells. The effects of these two divine arts are too heaven-defying, and they are not suitable for appearing in human society on a large scale. It can be used as a miracle, but the mastery of this power by mortals will eventually lead to the collapse of social order. After all, his believers want to believe in light and justice, so there are naturally a lot of good people among them. Such acts of sacrificing oneself to help others like the captain will definitely appear on a large scale among his believers in the future. And Wang Hao is also happy to see this kind of scene. Living in a world that is kind to others is better than everyone fighting each other and cheating each other. Anyway, since they will become his believers, they must be the group with good intentions, but what Wang Hao is doing now is to give them strength, so that they will be rewarded with good deeds and be able to do more good deeds. But there are definitely not a few people like them who are soft-hearted, and they are even the majority. Then when they saw the wounded, those who were tortured by illness, they definitely couldn't help but abuse this power. Birth, old age, sickness and death are the laws of nature. It is okay to save some, but to save the majority, then human society is not far from collapse. Among other things, tens of thousands of medical workers are unemployed, pharmaceutical factories have closed down, and medical research has stopped. Therefore, these two techniques need to pray and communicate with Wang Hao to obtain approval. Fortunately, there are not many envoys now, and Wang Hao is not bothered to deal with their requests. After all, the standard of belief in the setting of the first threshold must be a fanatic, even a strong believer, it must be a fanatic. People who are willing to give up everything for him, and fight against everything in order to protect the light and justice. In the entire city of New York, there are no more than a dozen fanatics, but there are only 3 who have become angels. Fanatics do not represent belief in light and justice. For example, someone who believes in power believes that Wang Hao is powerful, so he believes in him. There is also a person who believes in rule and authority. That guy turned out to be a mafia godfather. He has always believed in Jesus before, but it belongs to the family tradition. But obviously, Jesus failed to help him. The terminally ill godfather stayed in bed for a long time, seeking help from all forces. After seeing the global vision a few days ago, he began to study the belief of the sun god frantically. Today, he saw Wang through the window. He was so holy that he offered all his devotion at once. As a result, he was cured and became a fanatic of Wang Hao. But does he believe in light and justice? Definitely, people like him will be influenced in the end. Fanatics are willing to do anything for Wang Hao. So once there is an angel around who can communicate with Wang Hao and use Wang Hao's divine power, but that person is not him, how will they react? Join in, because they will do everything possible to feel Wang Hao's will. And then they will quickly understand that it is not enough to believe in Wang Hao, they also need to believe in light and justice, and believe in hope. So in the end, these people will be influenced and move towards the path of God's envoy. In the sky, God is spreading light, and God is enjoying worship. On the ground, miracles are being born and faith is spreading. However, in a certain dark alley in the city, Somewhere sparsely populated and away from the eyes, a group of people watched the god in the sky fall into chaos. Monkey Richet. In the dark alley, Scott Lang, who was waiting for the end of the battle, looked at the sun in the sky and couldn't help breathing out the fragrance. Watch your words. The man with more vicissitudes in his eyes patted the former on the shoulder, then looked at the sky solemnly. Tony, we're in trouble. Yes, we do have trouble. Deep in the alley, the grizzled Tony Stark was manipulating the virtual interface, hacking into SHIELD's system. With such a situation and a completely different crisis outcome, the only one who can know anything is the shield that still exists at this point in time. Found it. Wong Hao, the sun god, appeared 3 days ago, went to my place. Then went to S.H.I.E.L.D. as a guest. Well, he captured Loki, and he beat Thor up, and, I don't know you to be able to pick up Thor's hammer. Tony turned the screen, and it was the scene where the Avengers were ready to go on the bridge before, but Thor had his hands empty, and the captain was wearing a silver armor and holding a magic hammer. But when everyone was talking and laughing after the banquet, the captain didn't lift it up. I lied a little bit. The figure in front turned around, and it was the captain whose appearance remained unchanged except for his eyes that had become more vicissitudes. Wow, Captain Mio lied. God, my youth is over. Scott. The captain stared helplessly at his companion code-named Ant-Man, and then his face suddenly changed. The captain looked at Tony, and said a name. Banner. And hearing the captain's words, the complexion of the old version of Tony also changed suddenly. There are obviously some strange changes in this time and space, so that a completely different picture appears from the past of their world. And in this case, parting from them, Banner, who went to the supreme holy place to borrow the time gem, might be in danger. Banner. Bruce Banner. What happened to him? Didn't he go to that time gem? Where is that holy place? I know. However, the other two ignored his inquiry, and after Tony put away the virtual projection screen, the two left immediately. Scott, you stay here to observe the situation and wait for my order. Stopping the Ant-Man who wanted to follow, the captain gave him a solemn look, and then followed Tony out of the alley. It doesn't matter if you don't find the time gem, there will always be a chance, but if you lose all the banners, you will really lose your wife and lose your army. The two avoided their eyes and shuttled between the cities. Fortunately, everyone's eyes were now attracted by the sun in the sky, and no one noticed that the two superheroes who were supposed to be fighting appeared in this position. Just because people didn't notice it doesn't mean that God didn't either. Tony, and Captain, is that Banner's companion. High in the sky, Wong Hao, who was still spreading light, looked around the whole city, and wherever there was light, he couldn't escape his eyes. Naturally, he also saw those two rather abrupt figures. But he didn't move. He believed that Ancient One would give these two guys some unforgettable memories. And it's almost there, the wormhole can be closed. Solving the enemies below and the enemies above is carried out simultaneously. When the problems below are dealt with, Chidori's fleet on the other side of the wormhole has completely become dust in the universe. Thus, Wong Hao withdrew his power, and then the light shrank, the huge amounts of the golden sun gradually disappeared, the golden crow closed its wings, and a man appeared at the position where the previous sun appeared. My God, countless believers fell to the ground once again. They will never forget the golden sun, and they will never forget the figure of this man. Flying lightly back to the top of the Stark building, Wong Hao grinned as he looked at Tony standing beside the instrument holding a psychic scepter. What's the matter? Is it done? Don't worry if it's not done. Anyway, I've dealt with all the enemies. You have plenty of time. You underestimate this genius too much. Although you are the god I believe in now, you can't doubt my IQ. After speaking, Tony turned around and inserted the psychic scepter into the wormhole generator. The tip of the scepter touched the connection point between the Rubik's Cube and the instrument. Immediately, the originally orderly energy link appeared disordered for a moment, and at this moment, flaws appeared in the originally harmonious space position, and then the entire system collapsed. It is reflected in the fact that the space energy supporting the opening of the wormhole suddenly disappeared, and then the entire wormhole began to collapse. The gates of hell that have brought countless New Yorkers are closed. Tony, can you hear me? A voice suddenly came from the headset. It was the familiar voice of Braised Egghead. It appears that the communication system on the helicarrier has finally been restored. Ah, it's you, see. We've solved the problem. Hearing Nick Fury's voice, Tony replied with a smile. However, this good news did not make the other party happy, but the voice became more urgent. Listen to me, there is a missile flying towards you right now, and it is loaded with that. The smile on Tony's face froze for a moment, and then he cursed. Mazefac, cancel it, don't you understand why you cancel it and withdraw it? Labor and capital didn't die in the hands of aliens, but they will die in your hands. I didn't launch that. Listen, you're running out of time, 40 seconds until impact. It said it was 40 seconds, but in reality it was probably only about 35 seconds, and Tony just turned his head to look at the figure. Can you save us? These are two questions, one is to ask whether ability is enough, and the other is to ask whether Wong Hao is willing. I will talk to them about your government's problems, but there are still my followers here, so be grateful. The golden crow appeared in the sky once again, and countless people looked suspicious. Hasn't the enemy been dealt with? Then the next second, the golden crow flapped its wings and appeared on the edge of the city, next to a missile that was flying towards here. Open your mouth, swallow, and fly high. Wong Hao turned into a divine body and came to the sky, boom. A light flashed through his body, and invisible shockwave shattered the clouds, but quickly dissipated in invisible. If it wasn't for time constraints, Wong Hao would have a solution to this thing, but the time was too short, less than 10 seconds from his takeoff to interception. And the missile has reached the edge of the city. Then it is not safe to take midway destruction or other methods. This thing must be a fission mushroom bomb. Except for flower growers, other countries in the world do not keep flicks because technology does not allow it. Only the flick preparation technology of flower growers is different from other countries, so it can be preserved for a long time. This means that other countries that have the technology to make light bombs have to use them freshly, and the conventional mushroom bombs they have are all fission. And fission mushroom bombs have deadly radiation. Chapter 31. Due to the danger of nuclear radiation, even if it is detonated on the coast, the main shockwave and high temperature did not cause direct damage, and this thing can poison a large number of people in New York City. Not to mention the seawater with radiation and all kinds of things in the water, if you accidentally touch it, you may suffer from radiation sickness. It is obviously impossible for Wong Hao to spend time and energy to purify these harmful radiations. Then the wormhole is also closed, and he can't just throw it into it. So Wong Hao finally chose to swallow it by himself. As for the danger of swallowing it himself, from a physical definition, the sun is a nuclear fusion reactor, and he is a walking nuclear fusion reactor. Such a mushroom bomb can hardly be regarded as a hiccup. So the golden crow hiccuped in the sky, and the matter was over. But for Wong Hao, this is definitely not the end. The nuclear bomb launched in the movie is aimed at aliens, even if you have other ideas, it is just incidental. But now the aliens are dead, and they died a few minutes ago. As early as 10 minutes ago, when Wong Hao made a move, they basically announced GG. So this thing neither cancels the launch plan, nor revokes the detonation order. Who is it to attack? Labor and management don't care whether you are Hydra or the president of Meguo. You are dead, as I said, no one in heaven and earth can save you. A sneer appeared on the corner of Wong Hao's mouth, and at the same time, all Haotian believers in New York got a message in their minds. And definitely, after learning the news, they were also surprisingly angry. Many believers were angry for Wong Hao, complained for him. Wong Hao saved them, but their leader made such a decision. It is really worse than a dog, at least a dog knows how to be grateful. But most believers don't have enough faith to put Wong Hao above themselves, so they found another important thing after thinking about it. Where are they? If Wong Hao didn't eat the missile and he took all the damage himself, what about these civilians? They were still having fun just now, they were still happy to see Wong Hao flying into the sky, and they even pointed and admired the people around them. But after knowing that it was a mushroom bomb, all they could think of was fear. It's disgusting, those politicians. A group of souls, who didn't show up when they were needed, now want to sacrifice us together. Sacrifice. That's what you wrote in your eulogy. If we die, what is it for? For their selfishness of being high above and controlling power, they dare not see the appearance of the true God, and would rather take the lives of us innocent people together. Let's go, just to try the 1/10,000th possibility. No, I'm afraid it's more than that. If my God falls, they will mourn and take the achievement of expelling aliens as their own. If my god doesn't fall, but we die, what do you think will happen? A man stood among the crowd and sneered. They will blame our death on my god, let him be stained with blood, let him be blamed, and let him be wronged. Is this impossible? How dare they? The words of refutation are so weak, yes, how dare they? Why don't they dare? They control money and power, they control the mouthpiece of the media, and they control everything in this world. Why don't they dare? At this time, when believers told what happened just now, that the intercepted nuclear bomb was actually intended to blow them up with Wang Hao into a great sacrifice in human history, more and more people became angry. They had just narrowly escaped death, but they unexpectedly experienced another catastrophe of life and death. Only this time, it was their own people who stabbed the knife. Look, I don't care what you think, but we're in trouble. Above the building, Tony could not help but feel odd when he heard the shouts and angry voices coming from the street below. On the other end of the communication, listening to Tony's words and looking at the street scene in New York captured by the recovered satellite communication, Nick Fury let out an angry roar, and slapped both hands on the operating table fiercely. Fact. He exchanged Wang Hao's kindness and help with the greatest kindness and the most generous treatment, and his teammates returned everything to zero with a nuclear bomb. And now, he had to face a god, a sun god. Honestly, I want to quit my job. On the seat, an agent turned to look at the colleague beside him. Don't talk about you, I also want to resign. I don't want to fight this sun god. My mother is only my son, and I haven't married a wife yet. Similar emotions spread quickly, the mushroom bombs were fired from them, whether it was their decision or not, the anger of the sun god would definitely be vented here, towards S.H.I.E.L.D., and then it would be the turn of others. And the ability of the sun god, they have also seen it, let alone, it is a nuclear bomb, and he hiccups after eating it, what other means do they have to deal with him? Shoot with a bow and arrow. Hawkeye, who was far away in New York City, sneezed, while Natasha Romanoff in front of him was listening to the news in the headset with a helpless face, and finally replied. Well, I will try my best to appease his anger, but I still want to say, Director, is it too late for me to resign now? To Tony's surprise, when Wang Hao returned to the roof, he had a big smile on his face. Are you okay? Tony looked at Wang Hao's body, and even wondered if the nuclear bomb had blown Wang Hao's brain out. In fact, he didn't expect Wang Hao to be able to withstand the damage of the nuclear bomb, let alone swallow the nuclear bomb directly. But the crisis was resolved after all. Definitely, it was the immediate crisis, and compared with that nuclear bomb, Wang Hao's threat may be greater. Wang Hao glanced at Tony, the smile on his face didn't disappear, but it had a somewhat different meaning. If I have something to do, you haven't imagined the consequences. But I can remind you, a supernova explodes. The words on the smiling face made Tony feel as if he had fallen into an ice cave. He looked at Wang Hao and his voice trembled slightly. No, can't you? Your body mass is not strong enough to support that kind of movement. Tony tried to convince himself, because he knew very well, with a PhD in physics, he knew very well what a supernova explosion was. Once it happens, the entire solar system will be reduced to nothingness. Supernovae are the most terrifying celestial bodies in the universe. If the sun is undergoing violent nuclear fusion reactions every moment, solar flares equivalent to the explosion power of tens of billions of giant hydrogen bombs will occur on the surface from time to time. Then the supernova is that the entire fixed star explodes, and all the energy contained in it pours out without reservation and erupts to the surroundings. The sun in the solar system has burned for more than 4 billion years, and will continue to burn for more than 5 billion years, but what if this energy, which is enough to burn for billions of years, is released in just a few seconds? So Tony was extremely terrified, because once that happened, even if he was a pedantic celestial being, he would not be able to save mankind. As for Tony's question, Wang Hao just smiled contemptuously. My body. Do you think the human body in front of you is my body? Then what is the golden crow and the sun you saw just now? Virtual projection. The golden crow is Wang Hao's real body, and the human body now appearing in the outside world is just a part of the past preserved according to his wishes. Okay, stop talking nonsense, I'm here to see you for something else. After finishing speaking, Wang Hao put one hand on Tony's shoulder, grabbed the tesseract that was taken down with the other, and flew straight up. A moment later, the two appeared in front of the supreme holy place with 2 infinite gems. Go in. Pushing open the door casually, Wang Hao strode in. Sure enough, as soon as he entered the room, Wang Hao saw several familiar figures sitting on the chairs, and beside them, a phantom of the soul was still there. Stop talking about something. Hey, he's back. Seeing Wang Hao coming in, Banner's soul immediately yelled excitedly. Ancient One, who was making tea on the coffee table with his head down, looked up at him, then continued with his own business. At this time, Tony from outside also walked in with a confused face, so he saw this scene. A slightly older man who looked exactly like him looked at him in shock from a chair. Not only that, beside him, a guy who was exactly the same as the captain outside who was holding a hammer and changing shotguns was also sitting there. What's even weirder, is that big green guy, Hulk, lying on the ground as if he's asleep, with Banner's projection floating in the air. Wait, did you put a spell on me? I feel like I'm dreaming. That guy looks exactly like me, right? Tony pointed to the old version of Tony, expressing that his mind was a little messed up and he needed to clear it up. I think it's more appropriate for you to listen to him tell you. Talk to the other self. I'd like to see who you hate first. Wang Hao didn't give an answer, just tossed the tesseract in his hand casually, and looked at the decorations in the supreme holy place. After all, it is a power that has been passed down for thousands of years. Any piece of this furniture is a priceless antique if you take it outside. But Wang Hao just took a look at it, antique. The greatest value of this thing lies in the time it experiences, and time is the least valuable thing to Wang Hao now. As for other artistic value and commemorative value, it is also meaningless to Wang Hao. After all, this generation of human civilization is only 10,000 years old, and to him, 10,000 years is probably just a moment in the vastness of life. He will witness the rise of civilization and the decline of civilization, and all he has to do is to enjoy it until he loses interest in it all, that's all. Because of this, he came here with 2 infinite gems to meet these guests from afar. Chidori's battle was just a small fight, and the real Grand Army Interstellar War was just around the corner, so how could he miss it? And how powerful is the power of 6 infinite gems gathered together? Regarding this point, he is also very interested in experiencing it up close. Let me take a guess, he asked us to meet you, then you must not be some simple counterfeiters, and the big guy in this thing can't be counterfeit. So you are Tony Stark, and by the way you look, you are from future. The conversation started, and before the person over there introduced himself, Tony glanced around briefly, then spoke directly and made his own judgment. The old Tony, who was restrained by some mysterious force and could only sit on a chair, couldn't help smiling after hearing this, and then looked sideways. Look, this is genius. I have to say that your thick-skinned appearance hasn't changed at all over the years. The captain of the endgame version sighed, what time is this, and the guy next to him can't forget to play tricks. On the other side, after being confirmed, Tony smiled slightly, and planned to continue talking, but the captain obviously couldn't wait any longer, and interrupted him directly. Listen, Tony, we came here with no malice, just to save our world with infinite gems. Originally, according to what they said, we shouldn't meet, which would lead to an unpredictable future for you, but now, we need help. Everyone present, except Tony, did not know anyone from the future team. Whether it is Ancient One or Wang Hao, they are all strangers to them, so the captain can only plead with his old friend. But unfortunately, after hearing his words, Tony shook his head. Sorry, I don't count here, and since you don't know him, it means that you are not us in the future, you just come from a parallel universe that is very similar to us and has passed longer. At first Tony also thought they were time traveling, but soon he realized that this is impossible. Time is not a line, you can jump from here to there, time is a river, no matter how you go upstream, the past you return to is not the past you thought. Naturally, the so-called past you changed is just the present of another parallel universe that looks very similar. Just like Banner's answer to Hawkeye and others, if it's that simple, wouldn't the problem be solved if they traveled directly to the past and killed the baby Thanos? Why even bother looking for infinite gems? So there is only this answer, they come from other parallel universes, their affairs have nothing to do with this world. The conversation was deadlocked, and the captain looked at old Tony beside him, who shook his head. He is very clear about his own thoughts, because in other words he would think and act like this. But just when they were feeling desperate, a voice suddenly sounded from the side. This tea is not bad. Where did you buy it? Oh, do you like it? It's a snow tea I grow myself in my tea garden in Kamartaj, and I have a little more if you want it. Ancient One said with a smile while refilling Wang Hao's glass. And Wang Hao drank the tea in the cup again. It's really good, Kamartaj. It's in the Himalayas. It's such a high altitude, the spring water from the melted snow mountain, and the sunshine of this family. No wonder it has such a flavor. The two asked and answered, as if what happened here had nothing to do with the two of them, but who would think so? Sir, I don't know who you are, but I ask from the bottom of my heart, we need help, our world, our universe, half of life has been taken away, please, let us go, will infinite gems lend us, we need them to bring everyone back. The captain's voice was sad, and he couldn't help but shed tears at the end. Even in the face of the fiercest enemy, even in the face of the sky full of artillery fire, he never shed tears. However, in the past 5 years, he has shed tears in secret countless times, for those who lost everything. Tony, even if you don't want to help us, at least let us go, and we'll think of other ways. Old Tony looked at the younger version of himself, and suddenly shouted, but his expression didn't change, and finally he could only say helplessly. I have a daughter, Morgan. Her favorite thing is to pester me to tell Iron Man stories, and you know what she said when I left her doing it the other night. She told me she loved me 3,000 times. And I can't even go back and hug her now. The chair, let me go. The gray-haired Tony roared angrily, but the power of magic was beyond his comprehension, and the confinement spell cast by Ancient One himself was useless no matter how hard he struggled. Hey, but his words seemed to have had an effect. I don't know whether he saw the captain's tears or heard the phrase, I love you 3,000 times, that earned countless tears in a certain world. Tony suddenly opened his mouth and looked at Wang Hao with pleading eyes. What's the matter? Oh, you said help them. I didn't say no, otherwise why would I ask you to bring this thing? Wang Hao put down the teacup, then picked up the tesseract on the table. With 5 fingers, the crystal clear blue crystal shattered, and the sky blue space gem appeared in front of everyone. Is this what it was supposed to be? Originally seeing the Rubik's Cube being crushed, Tony was shocked, but he knew how much energy this thing contained. Starting from his father, Howard, their research on this thing requires precise processing with various instruments, and a slightly more intense collision will cause a large-scale energy surge, that is, an explosion. And Wang Hao pinched it hard with 5 fingers to create cracks. If he didn't still have some trust in Wang Hao, Tony was ready to run away. But he was also glad that he didn't run away, so now he saw the secret hidden under the Rubik's Cube. This is the space gem. Holding the gemstone with 2 fingers, Wang Hao looked at it carefully, the light in his eyes flickered like 2 LED lanterns. He's doing a spectral scan. Light is the most intuitive way of expression in nature. Except for black holes, any object will emit light, but most of them are invisible to human vision, so human beings will feel darkness. Just like dogs, their eyes can only see black and white, but as they're only black and white in the world. As the god of light, Wang Hao, all lights are his children and servants. Using light to analyze matter is the easiest way. It's amazing that such a small thing has such a huge amount of energy. Tony over there was still staring at the gemstone in Wang Hao's hand, admiring it. After all, from a physics point of view, this thing completely violates the law of conservation of energy. Both Howard and Shield have relevant research materials on Tesseract, and Tony has naturally read a lot. According to the records he has read, the energy contained in the Tesseract is almost endless, which is tantamount to completely overturning Einstein's law of conservation of mass and energy, and violates the foundation of modern human physics. For a scientist, this is not only the collapse of belief, but also the key to open the door to a new world. Material. This is not material, however, Wang Hao said suddenly. This is actually a space node. The reason why it looks like a stone to you is because your perspective and thinking cannot understand its original appearance. Yes, Space Gem is actually a node of countless space planes in the Marvel Universe, similar to the common intersection of all roads in a small town, except that these roads lead to dimensional planes, miniature universes. That's why it can mobilize endless energy, because behind it is really the entire universe. Similarly, in the hands of an expert, owning it is equivalent to owning a portal that can lead to any corner of the universe. Man-made portals or natural wormholes in the universe open up a highway in space, and it is a highway that can lead to any place. However, some people are impatient to wait for Wang Hao's research. After hearing what he said before, the trio of Endgame fell into disbelief, and then looked at Wang Hao with some expectation, but didn't dare to say anything for fear that hope would turn into despair again. But this matter has to be spoken after all, otherwise they can't stay here forever. Although this world is almost the same as theirs, everything in this world has not been lost, and it seems that it is a good choice to stay here and start again. However, as I said before, no matter how similar they are still two worlds. No matter how similar the Tony in this world is to the old Tony in appearance, even if their DNA is exactly the same, they are still two people, not a relationship between the future and the past. So they have to go back, even if they can't find the gems, they can't save those who disappeared, but at least they have people left. Tony also has his own wife and daughter, the captain and the family of the Avengers Alliance. Sir, you just said that you are going to help us, right? The captain asked in a deep voice. This is his last hope. And this little hope soon turned into stars, lighting up everything. I am the god of the sun, the god of light and justice, the god of dawn and hope. If there is suffering, I will save, if there is trouble, I will guide, if there is evil, I will kill. Then, your world need hope. The charm of divinity was activated, and Wang Hao stood in front of the three of them, like a rising sun in the darkness, dispelling the haze in their hearts. My world needs hope. The captain murmured, then shouted loudly. A thread of faith bursting out of a ray of hope rose up, entered Wang Hao's kingdom of God, and merged into the ever-increasing light of faith. Seeing this, Wang Hao smiled slightly. Then let me go to your world for a while. Turning his head to signal Ancient One to release the imprisonment of the three, Wang Hao then stepped up to Ancient One, his eyes fixed on her chest. Lend me the gem. Seeing Wang Hao approaching, Ancient One blushed and sighed helplessly. This guy turned on that charm again in order to borrow gems. Yes, the kind of masculine charm that can be called a strong aphrodisiac for women can be called a charm. But there is no way, if the opposite gender attraction between men and women is like two magnets attracting each other, then different men and women have strong or weak magnetic forces. As for Wang Hao, his positive magnetism is greater than that of all men combined. Any woman who sees him will inevitably be charmed, it's just a matter of how long she persists. You see, if you lose it, Dormammu will be up to you. After playing a blindfold in front of his own eyes and mosaicing Wang Hao directly, the somewhat relieved Ancient One untied Eye of Agamotto from his neck. And the latter smiled and nodded after hearing Ancient One's words. Don't worry, I'll settle Dormammu for you just because of your favor of borrowing gems. It's just the overlord of a dark universe. Wang Hao doesn't take it to heart, it makes him unhappy, he lights up his entire universe, let him go and enjoy the darkness. After the time gem was handed over to Wang Hao, Ancient One saw off the guests directly. In the blink of an eye, all the people in the house appeared on the street outside the supreme holy place, and Banner returned to his body. The sudden change of time and space made everyone exclaimed, but only Wang Hao knew that it was because Ancient One was made awkward by his charm. Okay, everyone, go find your companions first, and sit down and have a good talk. We will talk about going back later. Anyway, how long you stay here, the time to go back is fixed, isn't it? Companions, are the other Avengers coming? Tony immediately shifted his attention when he heard the word companion, and no longer paid attention to the fact that he was transferred by time and space. It's the Avengers, but not your current batch. The captain nodded, then switched on the communication to contact Ant-Man, who was still waiting for news. I told him to go straight to the Stark building. After a while, the captain spoke to everyone, so the group walked back, towards the Stark building. Along the way, Tony was constantly asking the old version of Tony about something, and occasionally Banner would interject a few words, and the dialogue between the three scientific masters was simply incomprehensible to ordinary people. The three captains who have no common language can only chat with Wang Hao. Speaking of which, he has always felt that Wang Hao is very unattainable since he met him, and this feeling became more obvious after he became a believer of Wang Hao. Because he can now feel the greatness of Wang Hao's life level better than Tony and others who can only see with the naked eye. It's like standing on the earth and seeing the sun as big as a basketball, but if you have an astronomical telescope, you will find the greatness of the sun. How can human beings hold a candle to it? A single human being is so small that it can be ignored compared to the earth. No matter how strong the body is, no matter how smart the brain is, they are nothing but a speck of dust in front of the planet. Compared with fixed star, the planet is on a higher level. The magnificence of the cosmic celestial body can easily collapse people's worldview and produce a world-weary mentality. So from this point of view, the captain sees farther than Tony and others, so he has a deeper awe of Wang Hao. The deeper awe comes from the perception of power, but at this moment, the captain hopes that the deeper the awe, the better. Because this also means that Wang Hao's strength is stronger, and it will help them even more. Although Thanos has been killed by them, they now only need to find the infinite gems to try to save everyone back. I don't know why, but the captain always has a feeling that things won't end so easily, but they can't bear the slightest wave, and they have nothing more to lose. The supreme holy place is not far from the Stark building. When the crowd came to the bottom of the building, a figure suddenly appeared in front of the crowd. It was the Ant-Man Scott Lang, who was hiding here in a miniature state. "Hey Captain, and Stark, two Starks." Scott looked at the two Tonys, one old and one young, and couldn't help but fell into deep thought. Who told him he couldn't change the past? Who told him to hide his identity? Scott, that's right, this is Tony. Forget it, this question is a bit complicated, and I won't be able to explain it clearly for a while. Let's go up and talk about it first. The captain took over the doubts of his fanboy, while Tony looked at the old version of himself with doubts in his eyes. Ant-Man, the one in Project Goliath, Pym Hank's technology. A few simple words made Tony Mosai suddenly enlightened, and then he said suddenly. So you use Pym particles to shrink down to the subatomic state, and then enter the quantum space. And the quantum space is actually a multi-universe transportation station. That's right, it's me, look at this genius brain. The old version of Tony patted Banner's arm next to him, but he couldn't reach the big man's shoulder, so he could only pat his arm. And for his bragging performance, Banner can only return an awkward but polite smile. Strangeness. After entering the building, the elderly Tony suddenly frowned, with doubts on his face. What's wrong? At this time, shouldn't the emergency response department of S.H.I.E.L.D. have arrived? I was thinking about disguising it. After all, it's better not to let them know about time travel. Saying this, the elderly Tony looked around. There were only a few sporadic employees on the ground floor of the building packing up their things, but most of them had escaped before and hadn't come back. After all, this was actually the center of the battle. S.H.I.E.L.D., they dared to come here, but it's a pity that they offended this great god. Now they may be thinking about how to save their lives. Tony sighed, not for S.H.I.E.L.D., but for Nick Fury. He is indeed conscientious and takes good care of himself, but those people behind S.H.I.E.L.D. are really self-inflicted and can't live. Afterwards, he explained the matter of the nuclear bomb to the four of them, and they all showed helpless expressions after hearing it. No matter which world it is, their stupidity remains the same. In their time and space, when the nuclear bomb was launched, the wormhole had not been closed, and a large number of Zeta Swiss soldiers had not been dealt with. This kind of behavior can be explained, which is the main reason why they did not trouble those guys in the end. But here, the wormhole has been closed, and all the enemies have been dealt with by Wang Hao. They even launched a nuclear bomb in an attempt to kill the gods. Now that they have done so, they will naturally have to bear the wrath of the gods. Ahem, Captain, I think we can provide a list, what do you think? A smile suddenly appeared on the face of the elderly Tony, who was not happy in his own world. At that time, although I was very upset, I could only suffer the grievance under the pressure. Later, when I found out that those guys were Hydra, most of the main messengers were almost dead, or they simply hid. But in this world, they still have a chance to vent their past grievances. As Wang Hao said, no matter how long they stay here, the time when they go back will not be too different from the time they left, so instead of being nervous, it's better to just have a big fight with Wang Hao. With them, they know the backbone of Hydra clearly, and with Nick Fury, they can completely catch them off guard. Hearing the old Tony's proposal, the captain frowned, and thought in his heart. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, which can not only please Wang Hao, help him punish those people, but also vent his past grievances. But Tony was at a loss when he heard the conversation between the two. He didn't know anything about Hydra yet, he only knew what mysterious plan these two guys were discussing. "Hey big man, how about taking the stairs? You're overweight." While discussing, everyone came to the elevator and prepared to go upstairs, but when they entered, Ant-Man Scott suddenly stopped Banner, who wanted to come in. Old Tony and the captain looked at each other, and then laughed. If I remember correctly, Hulk lost his temper when he refused to let him take the elevator. I think we need to remind him to remember to contact the construction team to repair the stairs in time. However, just as Dr. Hulk was aggrieved and walked aside to take the stairs, and everyone was about to close the elevator door and go upstairs, a figure hurried over. "Wait a minute." Banner, wearing a worn-out suit, hurried into the elevator, then smiled at Tony and Wang Hao. "Where did you two go just now? I searched for a long time but couldn't find you. Hey, Stark, why is your hair gray?" A finger poked Banner's shoulder behind his back, and Banner turned to look over to see Tony smiling in greeting. "That's right, your hair should have been this color." Then he turned his head abruptly, only to hear a click, and his neck immediately stiffened there, but the pain of the cramps still did not cover up the shock on his face. Two Tony Starks. "Ah, my neck hurts." A healing spell hit Banner's neck. Wang Hao looked at the two Tony Starks who were holding back their laughter, and shook his head helplessly. "Do you two like to bully honest people so much?" Now even the captain laughed. After all, Tony Stark was famous for his bad humor. Definitely, this was just a joke among friends. While staying in the elevator, in just a few tens of seconds, the old Tony explained to the young Banner about quantum space and time travel. "Omega, it's unbelievable that parallel universes actually exist. This is a subversion of the entire physics. The definitions of energy, time and space will all be rewritten. If the existence of parallel universes is confirmed, it means that there must be more than one. This is not 1 to 2, but 1 to infinity. That is to say, all the assumptions of human beings about the universe will be rewritten. But this proposition is too big. Although Banner wants to study it, the captain and Tony of the endgame world are obviously anxious. No matter how they know that the time spent here will not affect the world they are in, it is very urgent to go back and save the disappeared people. Don't get excited, but anything that goes against the sky, there will definitely be doom. If you say that you don't understand, then you understand that there must be someone or other factors to stop you, so you don't have to be so anxious. It's better to have more think about what kind of help you need." Sitting in the huge living room on the top floor of the Stark building, Wang Hao comforted the foursome of Endgame. He is very clear about the process of the final battle, but this matter is not in a hurry. With the time coordinates determined, no matter when they set off, the time they go will be a few seconds after the Infinite Gems team leaves, so they have plenty of time. Anyway, the 3 Infinite Gems have already been obtained, and it will be the same whenever they pass. To put it bluntly, he was lazy. It was a whim to want to watch the fun, and I thought it would be very interesting to go, but after sitting down, I didn't want to move anymore, like a cat lying on the floor basking in the sun in the afternoon, too lazy to move. Definitely, he can't say that directly. His image is so majestic and upright in the eyes of these people, he has to pretend to be a full set. So he made up such a set of rhetoric. Anyway, Thanos with a big fan knife will really make trouble, he is not a lie. The image of Wang Hao has indeed been deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. Well, it has penetrated into the hearts of the Avengers. From their point of view, what Wang Hao said must have some truth. If so, let's talk about it, do some other preparations. Wang Hao was enjoying his lazy time lying on the sofa, and over there, the Avengers from this time and space arrived one after another. Naturally, after the meeting, there were all kinds of shocks and suspicions. With the help of the elderly Tony, the entire top floor of the Stark building blocked all external communication. At this time, Natasha Romanoff and Hawkeye, who were not so close to everyone, wanted to subpoena Nick Fury, but there was no way. Afterwards, until the celebration banquet at night, the older generation of Avengers and the 4 Avengers from the parallel world held a tense and close meeting. In the end, the two sides reached an agreement. This world, Earth 1, and the Avengers of this world help the parallel world, Earth 2, and the Avengers of the world that has started the final battle to complete the redemption. In return, the Earth 2 Avengers will inform some key information, including Hydra and their leader list, including various new technologies provided by Tony, including certain details about Ragnarok. When Dr. Hulk, the big green man, told Thor that his whole family was dead, he and Loki buried Asgard with their own hands, and then they were intercepted by Thanos on the way to escape and killed half of them. Finally, Loki fought with his life and was strangled by Thanos. At that time, Thor was completely confused anyway. And not only was he dumbstruck, but Loki, who was tied up to the side and came over to listen, was also dumbfounded. Asgard, gone. No, Surta became so big. No, Hulk jumped on his head and was not as thick as his eyebrows, and then he thumped, stabbed down with his sword, and Asgard exploded. Dr. Hulk vividly described the scene at that time. He had already integrated Hulk and Banner, and naturally got that part of the memory. Thinking about it now, that was probably the most beautiful scenery he had ever seen. Anyway, with such a big firework, only Asgard can afford it. This kind of thing is not so easy for Thor to accept. My mother died, my father died, and my younger brother who had finally reformed from evil also died. Half of the people who ruled were gone, and I was blind in one eye. If you really want to say, he is the worst one among the Avengers. At the end of the meeting, the banquet began. Everyone ate and drank together. There was unlimited supply of barbecue and all kinds of food and drinks brought by people. The atmosphere became more cheerful, but the two brothers Thor and Loki still bowed their heads in silence, looking very decadent. Hey, what a big deal, isn't it that the future is a bit miserable? Since we all know it, then we can just change the future. Looking at the dejected Thor, Tony walked up to him with 2 glasses of wine and tried to persuade him. But such persuasion was useless. Thor just shook his head, and then said in a deep voice, I have known this future for a long time. Asgard has prophesied about Ragnarok since ancient times, which is the guidance given to Odin by the 3 goddesses of fate, and now I am annoyed that I have made so much effort, but there is still no way to change this ending. Sometimes the gloomy future is not terrible, the terrible thing is that there is no hope. Asgard has been preparing for Ragnarok. For this reason, Asgard gave up the behavior of the past thousands of years, and began to restrain its troops, no longer conquer the universe, and resort to military force. But the result remained unchanged. Instead, Thor learned that it was his 2 brothers who finally led to the destruction of Asgard. This has to be said to be a great irony. All the efforts you have made are irrelevant, because the result has already been determined, so the loss of fighting spirit and hope is definitely a matter of course. Thor gave up. He gave up his life, he gave up his dream, and his whole body sank, just like the Lebowski who was drinking all the time a few years later. But he gave up, but there are still people who haven't given up. When Thor gave up his life, the disheartened Loki suddenly stood up and walked straight to Wong Hao. Because all the Avengers are here, and there is such a great god as Wong Hao, everyone's restrictions on Loki have basically been released, except for a handcuff that will detect his hand movements and give targeted electric shocks, other things. But his behavior of walking towards Wong Hao suddenly made everyone turn their heads to look at him, wondering what he was going to do. If I believe in you, can you help me save Asgard, or rather, rule Asgard? Loki had the usual evil smile on his face. Although he was a little embarrassed, he looked at Wong Hao sincerely, waiting for his response. Believe in me. Aren't you also a god? Does God believe in other gods? Loki has ranks, and the Odin pantheon is the chaos pantheon born on the earth. Their godheads have been passed down from generation to generation and have been recognized by this world. But at this moment, he, a god recognized by the world, wants to believe in Wong Hao and become a believer of Wong Hao. I know you are different from us. Odin treats you with respect, so I know what kind of existence you are, and what about God? Ragnarok will also die when he comes, but you won't, will you? Appreciative eyes fell on Loki's face. Wong Hao suddenly liked this guy a little bit. Clever, aware of current affairs, although a bit of a second grader, but how to say that? Every big devil has a tragic childhood and an unknown past. Loki fits that description, too. Unlike Thor's idiot, Loki quickly found the crux of the problem. The Avengers of Earth 2 didn't mention the matter of Wong Hao, which means that Wong Hao didn't appear in their world. In addition, Wong Hao is an existence that Odin even admires, which shows that Wong Hao has power over the entire Asgard civilization. That being the case, what more need to be said about the person who can save the fate of Asgard? What do you believe in me? Light or justice? Dawn and hope? Wong Hao asked suddenly, and upon hearing this, the smile on Loki's face could no longer be concealed. He didn't even answer directly, but got down on one knee. The brilliance of the sun is supreme. The sun represents order, power, majesty and judgment, king and rule. I am willing to be the king of gods under your command, and you are the god of gods. There is no wish power, because the wish power is born from the light of hope, and only the power of hope can rewrite everything. However, after Loki finished speaking, Wong Hao saw another thing that connected him with Loki. Authority. As the authority of God. In Wong Hao's Golden Crow Kingdom, the Golden Crow soared amid raging flames, shining in the void, but now, a mask appeared in the void, with a wicked smile, representing Loki's personality of the god of trickery. But suddenly, the Golden Crow uttered a cry, hot flames poured down, and the golden rain of fire fell on the mask little by little. The mask made of unknown material was ignited and began to burn in the void. But in reality, Loki, who was kneeling on one knee, suddenly yelled, golden flames ignited from his body, and the elemental body of the Frost Titan was instantly revealed, and then the blue blood was burned away in the blink of an eye. The crystal clear bones and torso are exposed. Loki. The decadent Thor noticed the strangeness here, and ran over screaming, but before he could get close, he was stopped by a powerful force and couldn't get any closer. Stop it, what are you doing? In fact, not only Thor was shocked, but the rest of the Avengers were also shocked. They didn't understand why Wong Hao suddenly attacked Loki, and even used such a cruel method as burning him alive. Calm down, he's saving you Asgard. Wong Hao leaned on the sofa and drank the cocktail made by Natasha Romanoff, and said leisurely. Save Asgard. Looking at Loki howling in the flames, Thor couldn't understand why self-immolation could save Asgard. But soon he discovered that in the flames, along with the Frost Titan's flesh and blood being burned, what remained was a mass of pure flames. With the torso as firewood and faith as the catalyst, a fire of soul is burning blazingly. Even if everything under Loki's feet is intact, even if the skin doesn't feel the slightest change in temperature. But everyone present at the moment felt that the flames were raging, making their mouths dry and their faces reddened. Fire. The quintessential flames suddenly spread out, and the completely burned Loki gradually manifested in his body. Since then, there is no Loki, the god of trickery, but Loki, the god of fire. Loki. The flames faded and turned into pieces of clothing and dissipated on Loki's body. Thor looked at his younger brother who had resurrected from the dead, but was surprised to find that he was so strange at the moment. Although the appearance has not changed, the cynical Loki who always wears a fake evil smile is gone. His long black hair became crisp and dyed a flaming red, and everything about Loki changed, inside and out. Everything has changed except memory or Loki. And Thor's first feeling when he saw the newborn Loki was that he was full of enthusiasm, like a flame. Then came the fiery faith and boiling fighting spirit in his heart. Thor, fight. Loki let out a low growl. He had waited for thousands of years for this battle. He had lived in Thor's shadow since he was a child. No one noticed his efforts. He even surpassed Frigg, who taught him magic to become the #1 magician in the 9 realms, but what people still remember is Thor. No one noticed his presence, and Odin never intended to pass the throne to him from the start. He has the heart of an emperor, and he severely injured Jotunheim's Frost Titan with his backhand. Lof was plotted to death by him. He tried his best to eradicate the enemy for Asgard, and made his last effort for the peace of Asgard. He exiled Thor to the earth so that his brothers would not die disabled. The results of it, Odin never forgets to get Thor back, ignoring any of his exploits. So he hates Odin, hates Thor even more, hates all the people in Asgard who ignore him. But he also loves it. With his ability, there is a paradise everywhere in the universe, but he is still unwilling to give up Asgard. This is his obsession. And today, in order to save Asgard, he dedicated his soul to Wong Hao, burned his past, lit the divine fire with his soul, and was reborn as the god of flame in the embers. And the first thing he has to do is to defeat Thor and complete this Millennium War, and after defeating the heir of Asgard, he will push back Odin, become the true ruler of Asgard, become the Lord of Asgard. Only in this way, he can save Asgard. Golden fire burned in Loki's eyes, he was ready, he couldn't wait. And Thor also felt the anger in Loki's heart. Although he didn't want to fight Loki, he couldn't avoid it. However, just as the two sides gathered their momentum one after another, the atmosphere was so tense that it could be described as tense. A hand suddenly appeared and grabbed Loki's arm. Hey, wait, there's a banquet now, what's the fight? Let's talk about it after eating that. Loki, let me bake that chicken wing. On the top floor, the banquet was still going on, but the original captive became one of the guests participating in the banquet, and he personally set up a barbecue grill, where chicken wings were grilled. Wow, it smells so good. A crowd gathers around Loki, nostrils at the grill. There is no way, becoming the god of fire, Loki's mastery of fire, no one dares to call him number one in the entire universe when he ranks second. Even Wang Hao, because he learned too much, didn't spend his mind and time on the power of flames, so he couldn't compare to his own godliness in fine manipulation. Ever since, Loki transformed into a top culinary master again. But he also enjoys the feeling of being surrounded by everyone, being the focus of the crowd is his obsession, and his resentment suppressed by Thor for thousands of years. And belonging to God, this is a new discovery by Wang Hao. After ordinary people or beings believe in Wang Hao, their souls will establish a link with Wang Hao. And if they believe in light and hope, then they will also have aspirations. Definitely, so far, Wang Hao has not believed in other aspects of his believers. So far, his believers have more or less provided him with vow power. I have never met anyone who believes in him for other purposes, and he does not knowing what those people would do. But God has it. Loki naturally came here with hope. He hoped that Wang Hao could help him save Asgard, which definitely can be done. After all, neither Hela nor Surta was Wang Hao's opponent who led to the destruction of Asgard. And once Loki takes over as the God King of Asgard, the ending of this story will inevitably be rewritten. Thor is strong, but not powerful, so that he lost everything in the struggle, and this, Loki is in place, but the original he lacks strength. Now Loki offered his godhead and his soul, and with the help of Wang Hao, he became the god of fire under the throne of the sun god. His character is actually no worse than Odin. Even given enough time, Loki can realize more from the flames. Flame is a symbol of life and destruction, the beginning of civilization and the end of civilization. Flame also symbolizes light, but it also represents purgatory. This is a powerful law comparable to godheads such as thunder, light, and wisdom. The god of trickery is not enough to take the position of God King, but the god of fire can. Definitely all of this has nothing to do with Wang Hao. At most his little brother has become a king of gods. What really concerns him is that he found that his authority can be shared. It's different from sharing divine power. He used magic to share his power with the envoys. That kind of behavior was equivalent to giving money to others. It was like giving 10 yuan to others when he saw that they had no money to eat. But Loki has become his god, the personality and authority of the Vulcan. All the law perceptions about flames come from him, and at least half of his use and mastery of the power of flames is distributed. But he can benefit from it. He hadn't bothered to study the flames, but Loki would learn more later on, and he could learn that what was lost could not only grow back, but even grow stronger. The relationship between Wang Hao and Loki is actually the relationship between the boss of the company and the general manager of the branch. The company needs to open a branch for its growth and development, and Loki volunteered to become the manager to get the resource support of the head office, and he has also changed from an ordinary person to a company executive. This is a win-win and mutually beneficial situation. However, everything Loki does belongs to Wang Hao. No matter how the branch develops, it is Wang Hao's asset. Loki can only get a little annual salary and dividends. In fact, it's even crueler than that. If he started a company, Loki would still be able to escape unscathed, earn a few years of money and switch to another company to continue working, but the reality is that Wang Hao can completely bring Loki back to before liberation overnight, depriving him of all his strength and abilities. But in that case, Loki would be nothing but a soul, because his body and past godhood were burned away by the divine fire. And his soul is actually under Wang Hao's control, and his soul imprint is already in Wang Hao's kingdom of God. So Loki will never betray Wang Hao, because everything about him is under Wang Hao's control, and Wang Hao can absolutely trust Loki. This method is not bad. I think there is still potential for development. Wang Hao wanted to understand this question a little bit. The branch company goes out to develop, and it is more trouble-free. Wang Hao is worried that the time to become a god is too short, and he has not yet figured out his ability. No, it's timely help. Wouldn't it be enough to simply add a few more gods? The sun god has too many functions and powers, too many to count. If it is an ordinary sun god, such as Apollo, Badr, etc., their strength is limited, and they can't use it themselves, then they are definitely unwilling to share their abilities with others, but Wang Hao is a god of the universe, he is too powerful, so as for the universe, there is no opponent at all. Unless it is an existence of Dormammu's level, no one else is qualified to fight against him. Splitting out some ability will not affect his strength, and the future growth can be expected, so why not do it? I just don't know if mortals can become gods. If possible, I can pick a group from believers, but if only gods can change, wouldn't it be stealing my home? Definitely, in addition to the above methods, there is actually another way, that is to create gods. Except for a few gods who are born, most gods are acquired. For example, the two brothers Thor and Loki, their gods are all sealed by Odin, but they are actually inherited from the ancient Asgard gods. The same is true on Mount Olympus. Zeus killed his father with the help of his aunt, sisters and brothers, and obtained a large number of godheads from the Titan, so a large number of new gods were born, but the old one's god also fell because of this. In Olympus mythology, there are many stories about various demigod heroes who were made gods by Zeus after experiencing various hardships and dying, although they also became weak because of this. Definitely, if too many priesthoods are distributed, the power of each god will weaken a lot. It will take a lot of time to make up for the power of each main god to recover. But not every god is as powerful as Wang Hao. There are so many powers that many of them are useless, so you can use them for charity or open branches at will. There must be a way. Ordinary people must have a way to become gods, Wang Hao thought. But still the same sentence, don't worry about everything, the future time is calculated in tens of millions of years, why should he be in a hurry? At the banquet, there should be food and drinks, everyone finally won an interstellar war, and everyone was very happy. The same is true for the Avengers from Earth too. Wang Hao has promised to help them. With such a great god, no matter what they do, they will have less worries. The nerves that had been tense for a long time were able to relax for a moment. But there was one person who did not enjoy the carnival together. When most people were enjoying the peace, she sat beside Wang Hao with a glass of wine. Don't like this kind of party. Too many men and too few women. Wang Hao replied with a smile. What's the point of looking at a group of men being silly? These people are just characters he has seen in movies, and the most he thinks about contacting them is to take a photo with a star. In fact, Wang Hao and them can't talk together in many cases. Everyone thinks about different things, and the living environment is completely different. There is even a huge gap in the conception of the future. Captain Tony and others are busy saving the world, advocating justice, and practicing their own life values. Thor and Loki brothers think about Asgard, and Ragnarok as their top priority. As for Ant-Man, he is just a fool, he has drunk too much, and he doesn't know where to go to sleep. So he just lazily leaned on the sofa, watching them laughing there, but in fact, at this time, he actually didn't think it was interesting to play black in the internet cafe. Definitely, it's different with beautiful women. Then what do you think of me? Am I beautiful? The only woman present was leaning next to Wang Hao, looking at his cheek with charming eyes. She was handsome and perfect, even if she was leaning lazily on the sofa, she was charming. The same is true for Natasha Romanoff. After she took off her combat uniform, she was wearing a set of ordinary casual clothes, and her exquisite and slim figure was hidden under the clothes. But the real stunning beauty does not need to use nudity to attract people. A simple smile, eye contact and a little hint are enough to seduce a man to death. You heard what they said, Hydra is behind the scenes, and will bear the most of my revenge, so there is no need to please me. Wouldn't it be good to have this time to think about how to deal with them for Nick Fury? Wang Hao is definitely not Lu Shahui, but he is also not the ultimate perverted Dumal like Zeus. From aunt to sister to granddaughter, Zeus' behavior of spreading the world made his daughter feel disgusted, and then hated men, and vowed to remain chaste forever. It really obeyed the words of a certain young marshal, except for the one who gave birth to me and the one who gave birth to me, there is no one who can't go up. But Wang Hao thinks he can't do this kind of thing yet. He is more traditional and likes the simple feeling. Natasha Romanoff obviously came with a mission, he wasn't interested. In a different scene, in a different mood, he might even chat with her about life and ideals. Now, don't make an appointment. Wang Hao bluntly refused to let Natasha Romanoff's eyes flutter, but she quickly realized it and continued. Don't you think you're the one who attracts me? You know how attractive you are to women, don't you? I turned it off. That's the temperament of the god. Yes, it's the temperament, just like Thor looks like a reckless man, Loki looks like a sinister villain before, as the sun god, a symbol of men, I attract women are not very reasonable, but sorry, I have hidden that temperament. Wang Hao's eyes were pure and his heart was as calm as water, and then he suddenly let out a smirk. Now, I turn it on. The invisible charm suddenly appeared. In Natasha Romanoff's eyes, Wang Hao, who was originally just handsome and sunny, with a somewhat lazy atmosphere, suddenly seemed to be the center of the world. At this moment, all the images of men disappeared from her mind. That leaves Wang Hao. Rapid breathing sounded, and Natasha Romanoff's face was blushing, and she looked at Wang Hao with a truly blurred gaze. She bit her bright red lips lightly, her legs were clamped tightly, and the huge truth of the universe under the loose clothes fluctuated. At this moment, she was really lost in Wang Hao's masculine charm. Although she is still sane, her physical defense line has been breached, and she is soaked through there, okay. This small space is filled with an embarrassing special smell, but it also promotes the generation of a certain desire. Seeing this, Wang Hao was also slightly shocked. It's the first time he's seen Natasha Romanoff in such a close-up state, and he has to say, it's too tantalizing. This is really the stone Buddha is tempted. A woman facing you with this posture, her eyes full of lust, is also fatally attractive to a man. Wang Hao quickly turned off his charm, and said no to dating, then he definitely wouldn't. It's not a question of whether he is pretty or not. Where are there beautiful women? Even if not, Wang Hao can figure it out by himself, and his disciples will change towards a perfect image, which is because of his influence. This kind of power is also effective for women, and there is a woman among his current envoys. A 16-year-old nun who had lived in a monastery since she was a child. During the daytime battle, a Zeta Swiss soldier broke in. The old nun who took care of her since she was a child was killed at the foot of the cross to save her. At that moment, her faith collapsed. Then the next moment, a golden rain of fire fell, and she, who was dying, rebuilt her faith and became one of Wang Hao's envoys. So beauty is not a scarce resource for Wang Hao. Definitely, Natasha Romanoff must be attractive, not only because of her beauty. As a top agent, she is proficient in various skills, but her appearance is actually the weakest of her strengths. Her will to fight can touch Mjolnir. Among the people in the Avengers Alliance, the captain is not the only one who can lift a hammer. Natasha Romanoff can also. The firmness of her belief also moved the captain for a time. After learning the fact that S.H.I.E.L.D. was parasitized by Hydra, she immediately cheered up and continued to fight for it. It can be said that among the people in the Avengers Alliance, although the men's combat power is stronger than hers, in fact, if there is no such extraordinary power, all of them together may not be the opponent of Natasha Romanoff. From mind to strategy to improvisation, Natasha Romanoff abuses almost all of them. So, as a beautiful woman, Natasha Romanoff is dispensable to Wang Hao, but as a uniquely good beautiful woman, it is still somewhat attractive. This is called chasing connotation. Look at those women you have dated. They are all vases. They are called supermodels. In fact, don't you know more about the entertainment industry than I do? Although we are open, but you can't be hungry, right? On the balcony, Wang Hao hooked Tony's shoulder with one hand while explaining his theory to him. I'm a god after all, so I can compete with you for food. Good-looking skins are the same, they need connotations, and women with connotations are destined not to be touched by you at will. Do you understand spiritual communication? Just now Tony saw him chatting happily with Natasha Romanoff on the sofa, and thought they were going to spark something, but Natasha Romanoff left angrily alone, so he ran over to ask about the situation. But how could I expect to be told by Wang Hao? Then, the cruise ship pool party I arranged was cancelled. Actually, I didn't find anyone in the entertainment industry. You misunderstood me. You see, I only talked to them once. Why, that's the smell. So I found this time they are all freshly baked, pure and cute. I like them too. Tony drank a bit too much, but after all the battle, his mind is still clear, especially the majestic vitality in his body is still constantly helping his liver to work hard and break down alcohol, so there is no problem with his logic. Come on, why cancel? It's hard for everyone to get together, get to know each other, and make friends. Girls are reserved, and it's quite difficult to make an appointment. Wang Hao hurriedly interrupted him. How could he easily cancel the things promised to others? The poor and lovely girl had no clothes to wear, no food to eat, and needed him, the sun god, to save her. How could he bear to watch and not lend a helping hand? Woolen cloth. This is called assistance and communication. It is assistance, and it is a good deed. And I suddenly thought about it. Although the vase is useless, it's good to look at. Other gods are surrounded by a group of celestial maidens. I can't lag behind when the 7 fairies visit the garden. I have decided to choose a group of girls with excellent hearts and understanding will enrich my kingdom of God, and such girls are more suitable for the church's propaganda work. Wang Hao patted Tony on the shoulder, and then continued. Men alone are definitely not enough. Men are heroic and masculine. It is necessary to give people a sense of security, but the gentleness of girls is also a good way to heal the wounded soul. Tony was confused when he heard Wang Hao's words, but anyway, the party continued to be arranged. That's good, otherwise it would be a pity for the group of beautiful girls from all over the world that I asked someone to contact. Maybe they will fall into the hands of some people with strange hobbies, and finally fall into the same fate as their predecessors. I have to say that since he believed in Wang Hao and the light, Tony's heart has become more and more kind. Ah, sure enough, this is the life I want. On the vast sea, a luxurious yacht floated on the water. The sky was clear, and the gentle sea breeze was blowing on the cheeks, and the feeling couldn't be more comfortable. The sun is not dazzling. Just kidding, Wang Hao, the sun god. Can the sun be dazzling here? Definitely, the scenery and leisure on the sea are only second. Wang Hao looked back at the king-sized bed, surrounded by fat, green and thin yin yang yan yan, the best beauties from all over the world, lying together shoulder to shoulder. Well, Wang Hao was also lying on it just now. The girls, who were mostly young girls, were no older than 20, and the youngest were only 16, definitely adults in this country and theirs. That's why we are facing the pressure of life. Originally, they would become some people's playthings or taboos, living in castles, high-end hotels, dark nightclubs and so on. But in the future, they will all have their best home, Wang Hao's kingdom of God. Without any encouragement, Wang Hao let go of his charm, and they couldn't hold back, and threw themselves into Wang Hao's arms. Under the sun, they became Wang Hao's believer maids. Then there is a week of shamelessness enjoyed by being a god. Divine power does not require money to transform. Every girl has come to the most perfect state, has more physical strength than the captain, not to mention the flexibility of the body. Gymnasts can't match it. I can't think about it anymore. Beauty Township, Hero Tomb. For Tony's arrangement, Wang Hao likes and is very happy, and he really deserves to be a fighter among the old drivers. Among other things, as an ordinary person, if you get rich overnight and want to experience such a life, you can't find a way. The world's top enjoyment resources are numerous, from drinks and ingredients to luxury bags, from top luxury cars to ocean view bungalows, and even rarer human resources. Are these things available for purchase? What is the best location? Ordinary people can't even see it. How to buy it? The top luxury cars are almost all privately ordered, and the car companies don't exist to sell them. They are designed and brought to the market. Just go directly to the homes of the rich and powerful to inquire, and there is no need to worry about sales. And those top-level ingredients and drinks are not limited in production, and those people have already divided up the share of them every year. What ordinary people can see is not the best. They just get it in the market to earn some IQ. Taxes. And these human resources are not only beautiful women, excellent managers, basic researchers in research institutes, gardeners in manors, butlers in castles. Are these people found in the talent market? Those who are really capable are targeted by major companies and headhunters before they leave school. This is the information age, and gold will not be buried anywhere. If it is buried, it's just that you are not real gold. Like the maids behind Wang Hao, none of them were inferior to Natasha Romanoff in terms of beauty, and many of them were proficient in some special skills. I dare not say that they are proficient in everything in piano, chess, calligraphy and painting, but many people have indeed learned some excellent talents. After all, their original job was to please others. Now, it is enough to please the god Wang Hao. And in the future, they will have more time to learn all kinds of knowledge and skills. After all, they need to do something to pass the long years. Let's go, it's time to go back, or those guys should really be in a hurry. No one except Tony knew that Wang Hao went to sea. There is actually an optical barrier around here, and satellites can't see everything here. But after being out for so long, I've had enough fun. Even if there are still many new poses that have not been unlocked, it doesn't matter, there is plenty of time. That being the case, Wang Hao should go back first. Set sail, set sail. In the evening, the cruise ship sailed into the port of New York. What Wang Hao didn't expect was that someone was waiting for him at the port. You're finally back. If you don't come back, I'm afraid I'll send the Global Hawk to call you with a loudspeaker. Watching Wang Hao walk off the boat surrounded by 12 beautiful maids, Nick Fury's expression remained unchanged, but the seriousness in his eyes was obviously relieved a bit. What can make Tongtian's shield director so anxious? Wang Hao waved his hand, and the 12 maids stepped aside. Someone had already come to pick them up and leave. They will be members of the church and become a group of maids exclusively for Wang Hao, enjoying the benefits of the church and all kinds of wages and allowances. After all, many of them still have family members to take care of. As for the source of funds for the church, it is naturally social donations. For example, a rich man named Stark personally donated 100 million, and other rich people also donated a lot. A special accounting team has to be hired to manage it. As for the purpose of those rich people, it is nothing more than to show favor to Wang Hao. After all, many of them are old or sick. Wang Hao's act of saving Deadman's life with only one breath left shocked the whole world. And that's actually why Nick Fury is waiting here. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.